D. Mace Fingan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service, and we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. Gang's all here. How's everybody doing today?
Whoop, whoop. Doing good, man. It's time to
guys.
Wriggly roll. What's going on, Willie?
Good to be back with you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, man. You look a little shorter now, Willie.
I
It's the chair. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Hey, Willie, you're looking a little short now, man.
I got to raise back up. I went too low on my seat adjustment. I was a little lower than that.
Yeah, and people probably looking at it on one of the streams are like, "Whoa, what's going on?"
You missed a little, you missed a lot, Willie Donick. We'll have to introduce you to Big Jeff and Enormous Sweat.
Yeah,
the R&B group that Derek invented yesterday. And we'll talk about Devondre Sweat later in the program. But I sent you guys this picture earlier, and I just want to make sure that I'm not the only one who thinks this. So I stopped by a deli on my way to work to get something to eat.
Which deli?
No free shouts.
No free shouts.
No free shouts.
Off the air, I want you to know because we have a deli that is our go-to on the east side, and
I imagine it's the same deli.
Okay.
We both live over there. I imagine we frequent the same
is it
deli.
in between where you live and I live?
This deli is closer to our station because I was here early.
Oh, so it's not.
So as I was ordering some lunch, they have the chips laid out and and the other snacks.
They're enticing you. They're enticing you.
And there it was, pickle in a pouch. And I can't think of anything less appetizing than pickle in a pouch.
Amen.
And save your sophomore jokes on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. But just imagine it was a single pickle floating in pickle juice in a plastic resealable bag. And I can't think of anything less appetizing off the top of my head because I like pickles, but pickle in a pouch, no, thank you.
Okay. I feel like they didn't market to you correctly.
Yeah, they really didn't.
It's poor marketing. The pickle in a pouch
it doesn't sound appealing.
I mean, you know what you're getting when you pick it up.
Yeah,
it's a pickle in a pouch.
Yeah,
you know what you're getting.
It is very specific.
Yeah,
but let me ask this though. You said you like pickles.
I do.
Yeah,
that was I like pickles.
I like pickles. Yes,
I'm partial.
So do you have a
pickles
problem
are okay now.
So you don't have a problem with the pickles. It's
just
the
a
pouch. You got a problem with the pouch.
Are we doing a Seinfeld bit right
and
now?
And how long has the pickle been in the pouch?
That I don't know.
Is that a problem?
But I prefer the pickles in the jar.
Okay. What
a singular pickle floating in juice in a plastic bag.
Okay.
What if there was a singular pickle in the bottle, just on the shelf?
Well, then
a glass bottle?
Yeah, glass bottle. Would you take it then?
No, because pickle? I would assume that somebody ate all of the other pickles and just left
if it said
for it.
Single jar. Pickle.
Not real practical.
Yeah,
that would be more appealing than in a plastic bag.
Oh, okay, so it's just a plastic bag.
He's got a problem with the pouch.
He got a problem with the pouch, and I understand. I get
now, here's my next question.
Okay,
because here is what I have grabbed off of that very type of rack before. Pickles sliced up
in a pouch,
in a version of the pouch.
What is the version of a pouch?
I don't know if it says pouch, but it's a pouch. It's just
okay.
They don't say pickles.
Has juice in it.
It's got the dill juice in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I have taken those and enjoyed those.
It'd be like going to
So is the sliced pickle more appealing to you?
Pickle
chips. Pickle chips.
I'll have to think about that one.
They're not chips because they're not crunchy.
But it's not unlike,
right. They're not crunchy.
Yeah,
but they're like the size. The
size of a chip.
I've heard them called pickle chips before.
It's not unlike you go to the airport, right? And usually when you're hungry at the airport and you go to one of the newsstands, you can get a bag of chips or trail mix or a protein bar, and then there's that display with the drinks, and then there will be like airport sushi. You're not touching the airport sushi. I'm not touching the pickle in the pouch. Again, save your sophomoric jokes. I'm out on pickle in the pouch.
When I was a kid, they were more appealing when I was a kid because they used to have the spicy pickles in You know, you
Yeah,
go around
yeah.
the corner to the store.
I think
I
they
want a
probably
spicy
have-
pickle. But you know, here's the difference between, I think, and I'm going to be that old guy, get off my lawn type. Here's the difference between Willie, our generation,
Okay.
and say, not necessarily Adam's generation, but a little bit after Adam. When we would get the singular pickle, at least in my neighborhood, we would go to the store and we would say we want a pickle out of the jar. And the guy would he'd put on his gloves. Sometimes he wouldn't. We didn't care. We were kids. He would take the little, what do you call those? Dang it. I forget the
Tongs?
tongs. Yeah. He would take the tongs and grab you a pickle. And then he'd put it in a little pouch and give it to you.
Yeah.
I don't
Would you like
either.
that?
No.
Why not? It's
I've
in a
seen that.
jar.
They still have that. At the
It's in a
delis, yeah.
jar. He
The old
doesn't leave the
school
jar
delis.
open. He closes the jar back. What's wrong with that?
I don't want somebody fishing out a pickle for me.
He's doing it with the tongs, with gloves on.
I don't care for that. I don't like
When you
that.
go to a
You don't
restaurant,
think
they
it's
don't even wear
sanitary?
gloves.
It's not sanitary.
Yeah, they don't even wear gloves at a restaurant sometimes.
Well, if I order a sandwich at a restaurant and the pickle comes on the plate, you're right. Somebody may have handled it without
Yeah.
gloves on, but I don't know that.
You just
So,
didn't see that.
Oh, so it's the optics.
That's
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
why
it's the
like,
optics.
he doesn't have a problem with the pickle.
Exactly.
It's the pouch.
It's the
Absolutely.
pouch.
There we go. Okay.
It's not the pickle.
It's the optics. Okay.
I
See,
love-
get it.
I am okay with the pouch if the pickles are sliced, but I would not select a pickle in the pouch.
I'm
for
just
that
not a
reason.
pickle guy.
One
anymore.
texter says, so we're partial to pickles, but pouched pickles are problematic. Great alliteration there. Yes, that is correct. Pouched pickles are problematic. Sonny on our
Triple
text
P.
line, Sonny on our text line says, Adam, I 100% agree. I love pickles, but the pickle in the pouch just looks very unappealing. I won't touch them. And on our personal text line,
Yes, I just saw we have a
Exactly,
weigh in from
yes.
our old friend
A celebrity.
Caroline Fenton texted in and said, I too have an issue with the pouch. I would happily eat said pickle if it
See,
came.
it's all they
in a
need to
jar.
market different. That's
so
all
you
they
and
need
Caroline need to make sure you go to the same place. And
Yes.
avoid the pouch.
Yes. Wes from Hermitage has a pickle story on our phone line
Oh,
driven by
boy.
Wilson County.
Do we dare?
Hyundai.com. Wes, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Oh, Adam, I'm about to blow your mind. Maybe all three of y'all's mind. I'm telling you
Mind-blowing
right
pickle
here.
stories.
So it's not necessarily a pickle story, but look, check this out. So I do advertisement and marketing online on social media. Different companies reach out to me. They send me products. I make an ad for it, post it online. I am in the process right now of trying to grasp what I just received in the mail that I have to make a video for.
Mhm.
And it is a pickle in a pouch times 6 with other festive things inside of this gigantic box. And I wanted to tell you, there is 6 different flavors. You have to listen to this, man. They've got tiger's blood, chamoy, mango, chili wine,
Pass.
blue raspberry, grape.
Yeah.
Wes, send it back.
Wes, I
And
wouldn't
it
take a
comes with
bite of
fruit by
those
the
things.
foot. It comes with fruit by the fruit and nerds and all sorts
Oh
of
my
stuff. So,
God.
like,
Oh well,
stuff
keep the
for
nerds
pickle
and the
with
foot
it.
by the fruit by the foot.
It's
Keep
so-
those.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's the Roy B. Jiv of pickles in a pouch, man. It's nuts.
Wow.
Wes, if you have the means to turn down this job, I would do it. That sounds disgusting. Nobody could sell
Well,
that.
the thing is it's just for my daughter. My daughter's dying. She has an obsession with pickles, and this was her request. So
Okay,
She
fine.
wish
requested
me
them.
luck.
Okay. What
Oh,
were the
wow.
give me the flavors again, Wes? I want to go through these. Something about
Tiger
tigers.
blood.
And it'll be in the next 5 days. It'll be online everywhere. So it's tiger's blood, chamoy mango, chili lime, blue raspberry, grape, and cotton candy. And they are definitely like the colors of the pickle represent what flavor it
Oh
is.
my
So
God,
these
that
pickles
sounds
are
awful.
blue and pink and purple and
Oh,
red.
God.
It's crazy.
So these,
I'm gonna
but these
send
are
y'all
real
a picture.
pickles.
These are absolutely real pickles that have
Hold
been
on, hold on,
flavored.
hold on. Hold,
Pickles with raspberry flavor.
Wes, are these the? Will you get the munchies after you eat these pickles?
No. You do this after that, Derek. After
Oh,
that. This is
oh,
what
right. Order of operations, Derek.
No, but I'm listening to it because they got flavors. So is this, cannabis? They infuse, I don't know how they do it, but they can infuse the pickle with
Wes,
cannabis
when you
somehow,
figure
somewhere.
out the best way to market this,
Yes.
let us know. Touch base with
I'm
us.
going to send y'all a picture of all this
Please do.
shenanigans. And where do I send it to? The text line?
Yeah, send it to the
I
text
think you
line.
can send it to the text line.
Or
We'll-
just
Awesome.
send the
Hey, I
picture and
appreciate
tag
it, guys.
us.
I love you
Tag the
guys.
show.
Yeah, you can tweet it.
Yeah, and tag the show
Right.
so we can see it.
Thank you for your patronage, Wes. Godspeed, my friend.
Wow.
Thank you for the call, Wes. One texter says, after 10 to 12 beers, pickles in a pouch cannot be beat. Well,
Ooh.
I don't think I've ever had 10 to 12 beers in one sitting.
Yeah, man. Whew, 10 to 12 beers.
No.
Gosh.
But nevertheless, pickle
you
in a
even want to
pouch.
eat pickles after that.
Pickle in a pouch, no go. And although Wes just painted a vivid image with his words there, as a writer, I appreciate vivid imagery.
Mhm.
And then I heard what Ryan Williams said the other day. Now, I guess John Gruden has been uncanceled. I missed this.
Oh, yeah. He's
been
Gruden is
uncanceled.
back.
It's been
Gruden is
phased back in.
Right.
Yeah.
So Gruden is doing his version of the quarterback camp thing that he did with ESPN back in the day. And he had Ryan Williams, the young Alabama wide receiver, on his show. And John Gruden asked Ryan Williams about Alabama's loss to Vanderbilt last season, which we know was a huge deal, especially around here. And listen to how Ryan Williams describes what the Crimson Tide are planning to do to the Commodores in October.
What the hell happened to you guys against Vanderbilt?
Man, they played a better football game than us this game. We came out slow, and they capitalized. They held the ball. They had their game plan, and they executed.
What do you say to your team when you got Vanderbilt this year? They're coming into Tuscaloosa.
Man, going into this game, it's we don't call them revenge games. So we gonna kill an ant with a sledgehammer this year. So I mean, just every game that we fell short last year, we definitely got red eyes going into them.
An ant with a sledgehammer.
Van Ant.
Cruel and
The ant
unusual
bills.
punishment. Killing an ant with a sledgehammer.
And why is
He
John
called
Gruden
y'all
got to
the
come out and
ant.
single that game out? Like, oh, how'd you guys lose to Vanderbilt?
Basically, what he's saying is
that
that
always hits a chord with me. The whole, I don't know how you guys lost to Vanderbilt.
wow.
You guys must not be ready to play. Vanderbilt snuck up, and you guys just were flat, I guess, huh? That absolutely makes my skin crawl. Sorry, guys, they kicked your butt, 40-35. Here's the answer to the question, Ryan. By the way, Ryan Williams was awesome in that game. They've never stopped.
Three
Ryan
catches, 82 yards, and a
Williams.
touchdown.
Yeah, and the 3 catches were amazing catches, but you never stopped them from start to finish. That was a beatdown. That was not a fluke. Okay, sorry, I had to say that.
I was going to let this take the
Isn't
floor.
that the classic? Every Vanderbilt fan will tell you that John Gruden, hey, what am I going to ask Ryan Williams? Should I ask him about how awesome he is? And I'm sure he got to, let's ask him about losing to Vanderbilt. Give me a break, man. Come on, John.
He didn't just say Vanderbilt. He said Vanderbilt.
Yeah. How did you guys lose to Vanderbilt?
Like
It felt like Vanderbilt was
disgust.
2-10 last year, right? They beat a lot of teams.
And the year before, I mean, come on. They still show promise.
But if there was
Man.
one person other than Willie Donick who was not going to take this lying down, it was Diego Pavia.
Okay.
And Diego Pavia responded on Instagram. According to On3, he reposted a reel that had Gucci Mane's Made It outro playing in the background. One of the lyrics is, they acting like they tough, but don't want no confrontation. And Pavia included a 100 emoji and smoke emoji with the post.
Man.
That's
That's
how
what
you,
I'm talking
that's how
about,
you clap
Vandy.
back. That's how you
Yes.
clap back in 2025.
Vandy, sometimes, yeah, turn another cheek is good.
Right,
I get it. I get it. But damn it, sometimes you just got to, you know what? Ball that fist up and hit him square in the nose, man. Then they know, don't mess with me no more.
Yeah.
Pavia, that's what he's doing, man. 'Cause
He gives them some swag.
Yes.
Right?
I don't think anybody else, well, they have it. I don't think anybody else, if Pavia wasn't there, no one else would have said anything. Maybe coach would have said something, he would have stayed.
Behind closed doors.
But I'm saying in public, he would have said something more diplomatic, and rightfully so. He's the coach. But I don't think any other player would have came. They need Pavia. Man, Pavia got swag, man. They need Pavia.
We're working on Pavia having like 4 more years of eligibility.
Yeah, we need to give him 4 more years, man.
He's going to be the first 31-year-old quarterback in NCAA history.
Rex Road suggested that that message should have been soundtracked by Ants Marching by the Dave Matthews Band.
Right.
I don't think that hits the same Rex Road. It doesn't have the same
that would have
fire
been good
to
though.
it.
That would have been a good reply is to have a bunch of ants marching.
Uh-huh.
Remember there was the old commercial where the ants would take the beer, like the Bud Light. They all marched with the beer on
Yes.
top, and then they
He
went
should
to
have
the
just sent that
anthill
emoji.
and they chugged the Bud Light
Mhm.
going down the anthill.
He should have
That's
sent
what he
that.
should have said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we
Ants are
have
pretty strong.
we have an important update. Wes has sent me the picture of the pickles that he was referring to on the phone line.
With the unique flavoring.
Oh my God, Wes,
I see it somewhat, and I
This-
wouldn't eat it.
this is disgusting.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't eat it. Yeah,
That is a pickle should not be that color.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that color. Oh my.
I nearly threw up when I saw it.
Oh my God.
That's strange. That is strange.
That is weird to look at.
Pickles that are not green, that starts you off on the wrong foot, right?
Yeah. How you get up in the morning and eat one of those, or during the day and eat one of those?
Any
Just
time of the
grab
day.
one.
Yeah.
And it's light outside, and you can see the pickle. How do you eat that?
Great
Looks
question.
like a science experiment gone
Oh
wrong.
man, I don't know.
I also do quickly before we go to break. I do want to pour one out for Nicholas Petit Frere, who
Oh, wow.
lasted less than a month with the San
man.
Francisco 49ers. The NPF era in San Francisco, May 9th, 2025 through June 3rd, 2025.
Man,
Wow.
Gosh,
They're going to bring 80. How many? You bring 85, 90
90
people to the
90, 91.
to the camp?
Didn't
Yeah,
even
90.
make it through minicamp, I guess.
He's not one of the top 85.
Is he
or
dealing with
90.
an injury?
I don't know.
Well, it really doesn't matter.
Andre Dillard's still sticking around, though. in
See,
San
Dillard's still
Francisco.
sticking around. I don't know, man. Nicholas may have got we may have contributed to all of this.
I think
Not
he could be
necessarily
emotionally
us.
scarred.
Not necessarily us, even though we did. I'm saying us as a
As a
city.
city.
Yeah, I think we may have contributed to.
But
Yeah,
the
'cause
fresh
he's
start,
just-
the fresh
yeah.
start thing didn't.
It
seem
didn't
to
help. Yeah, it didn't-
I hope
didn't
I
help.
hope he was renting. I hope he didn't buy
Yeah,
a
yeah.
house.
I'm sure he did.
I know.
I
I'm sure
wouldn't-
he's been at a hotel or something. But
shoot,
the,
living in California, I wouldn't buy a house. Period.
the
Shoot.
MPF era, we hardly knew ye in the Bay Area, less than a month. Nicholas Petit Frere, released by the San Francisco 49ers. 615-737-1025. If you have thoughts on pickles in the pouch, Ryan Williams, Nicholas Petit Frere,
Or bringing Nicholas back.
And you can't lose to Vanderbilt. Show me, tell me you're with me on this, Vanderbilt people. Do you notice? I mean, this is you want to tweak the Vanderbilt fans. That's what you get them with.
615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHoney.com. Coming up next, we heard from Calvin Ridley yesterday talking about Cam Ward. An interesting description of his mentality from Calvin Ridley about Cam Ward. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Don't miss out on Nashville's best deals. Great offers for 312 Pizza, Beach Bend Amusement Park and Splash Lagoon Water Park, Central Barbecue, Fog Street Lawn Club, and more. Get them now while supplies last at thegamenashville.com/deals.
Happy hump day, everyone. Hey, this is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MDs for some time. So if you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time. Setting some type of goal or resolution and shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But I got some answers for you, because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
Nah, man, you know, it's just more of getting on the same page. I honestly want to hear what he thinks, because I just want to be in a spot where he want me. So I asked him first, what did I do wrong on the play, no matter the throw or the catch or whatever it is? What do I need to do to make you feel better? And then I try to pick his brain of what do I need to do to make you feel better? So that's pretty much what we're doing. Like I said, it's easy to relate to him. For me, just easy to relate to. It's fun, easy to talk ball with, and just like him a lot. Man.
Is there anything like to the calm confidence? Because a lot of the guys, they say like he has a calm confidence that it kind of rubs off on you guys.
Yeah, like I said, he came to my house before. My brother met him. The first thing he said after he left was like, "Man, he just ain't just calm. He relaxed." So, I mean, you need that at the quarterback position, man. You can't just be an overthinker, a jittery guy. You just got to kind of, be okay with, up, doing good, and just got to have that mentality. He kind of got that.
That was Calvin Ridley yesterday at Titans OTAs talking about Cam Ward. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. As I was listening to that clip, Derek, I was hearing what Calvin Ridley was talking about and describing Cam Ward. You can't be an overthinker. You can't be jittery. And I thought to myself,
Will Levis,
who's a quarterback who might overthink things and who might be jittery? His quarterback last year, perhaps? And remember, we spent a lot of time during training camp last summer and in the early portion of last season talking about how Cam Ward and Will Levis were struggling to get on the same page. So again, as we talked about yesterday, Derek, there is only so much that you can glean from OTAs. But Calvin Ridley, with high praise for Cam Ward, talking about how cool, calm, and collected he is, which runs counter to how we could describe Will Levis.
Yeah, I think what you're starting to understand is he's that type of person. And I think that's one of those things that attracted the Titans to open them up more to the potential of drafting him and ultimately drafting him. When you see a quarterback, that's the worst thing to have, is a quarterback with a lot of talent, but it's erratic. A guy that doesn't know how to settle himself within the pocket. A guy that isn't feeling the ground that he's underneath. Guys like that, they tend to be, erratic, and they tend to make mistakes. It's not like they want to make the mistakes, but because they don't feel a sense of ease within them, then they're always looking, when they get in trouble, they're looking to quickly get out of it or try to make that heroic play. And we've said this about Will Levis for the longest, like, you don't need to play hero ball. And we saw him trying to play hero ball at times. What they are getting from Cam Ward, or what the feeling is that they don't believe he's that type of guy. They don't believe that he will play, that he will put them in a position as he learns the game. Now, early on, yes, he may try to do something that all rookies try to do. But the part that they believe is he will learn from that very quickly. And because of his disposition, and because of his demeanor, he will be able to fight through it, whether he's thrown for 4 touchdowns or 2 interceptions. He still has a calm demeanor about himself. And typically guys like that has talent, like true talent, those guys end up being elite quarterbacks. Just look at all the quarterbacks even the ones that we don't consider elite but really good. Just look at them in the pocket. Watch them. It doesn't seem like they're ever fazed by what's going on. They may not make the right read all the time, but it's not because, unless a play needs to be made, but it's not because they just look jittery in the pocket and everything tends to go haywire.
I'm curious, Willie, what our expectations should be for Calvin Ridley, because he took off really once the Titans traded DeAndre Hopkins, as Derek has talked about previously. That freed up Calvin Ridley to be the alpha dog in the wide receiver room. He famously had, Ridley did, that game against the Colts at the beginning of the season where he had 0 catches on 8 targets. Ugh. 2 weeks later, he comes back with 10 catches on 15 targets, albeit in a 52-14 loss to the Detroit Lions.
He did have a couple of games like that,
yes,
where he grabbed some snags and some yards after the outcome was already decided.
Yes.
But I think Calvin Ridley is who he is right now. I think he'll be fine. He'll do his part if he's healthy. He's not going to be the greatest wide receiver of all time, but he'll be who they hope he will be. Probably an overpaid number one receiver who is the best they have. That's okay. Here is what I am concerned about. I'll bet you if we dig hard enough, we can find some sound bites from not only Calvin Ridley, but several other people, probably DeAndre Hopkins, probably Chig Okonkwo, everybody who's going to be catching passes from Will Levis going, hey, I really like Will Levis in these workouts, man. He's looking good. He's got some leadership. He throws a great ball. This is the season. This is the season where it would be huge news if any of the 30 teams in the league had somebody go, our quarterback, he's just terrible. We got to get a better quarterback. Right? You just don't hear quotes like that in OTAs and workouts in the summer. It's just not part of it. There's no defense. There's no expectations.
We did talk about this yesterday, how the breathless reporting of OTAs I have always found to be so amusing, especially as we evaluate players. The other day, Willie, when you were here, when we were playing that clip from Mike Florio, when he just happened to see, I saw some B-roll of Cam Ward, and it was Mahomesian, that sidearm throwing technique, half of a 10-second clip he probably saw on social media. And I always find it to be amusing to see how people react to that. What I found to be interesting was Mike Clay of ESPN, who I believe is one of ESPN's top fantasy football analysts. He puts out these incredibly thorough projections for every team because you know how fantasy football owners are. They want to know all of these things. Yeah. So last season, Calvin Ridley had 64 receptions for 1,017 yards and 4 touchdowns. Mike Clay's projection for Calvin Ridley this season is 62 receptions for 970 yards and 6 touchdowns. Would we consider that a disappointing season if Ridley has a 62 catch, 970 yard, 6 touchdown season?
I think you should get 1,000. With 17 games, you should get 1,000.
If he's okay, I think I got to explain to everyone because we look at we're gonna look at Jaden Daniels, not us, but I'm saying in this whole thing. You look at Jaden Daniels. And you see what he did. You see what his receivers were able to do. You look at some of these other quarterbacks that may have come in. C.J. Stroud came in his rookie year. He and his receivers connected so much so that it parlayed him into a bigger contract. So you're going to see instances like that. But then you're going to see instances where a rookie quarterback comes in with a veteran receiver, and that first year is going to be one of those trial and error years in a sense because the quarterback's just learning everything. There's going to be some games where he's going to look explosive, and Calvin Ridley may be the recipient of that. There's other games where they're not going to be as explosive.
Yeah,
and
you
with
would
a
think
young
there's going to be some ugly
there's
Sundays,
going to be
right?
Because with young quarterbacks, it's just
That's
like
what it is.
you try to slow them up a little bit. You try not to give them too much, and you try to keep the games where they don't have to play hero ball. So hopefully you will be playing a lot of low-scoring games, or if your quarterback's that dude, then hell, he can score. If he can score you 30 points, then so be it. But realistically, you want to try to keep this thing in between 14 to 17 points with a rookie quarterback. And that means you're not going to throw the ball as much. You're going to lean more on a running game. You're going to lean heavy on your defense for them to get the stop. So what that does to the other guys, it takes away some of the production, not because they are sort of, losing a step or anything. No, it's about the quarterback. It has nothing to do with the wide receiver. Now, if he plays 17 games, yeah, he may end up with another just 1,000 yards, 1,017 yards and 6-7 touchdowns. That's cool, but I'm not going to look at a season like that and say, well, Calvin Ridley has taken a step back. No, I know because a young quarterback, it changes what you do schematically and how aggressive you're going to be. Now, if Cam comes out and show he's the dude, then, hey, let's roll with it. But if you see him and you see like incremental developments in him, you're going to see other guys that may not be benefiting from an older quarterback. They will, instead of having 75 catches, they're going to have 62 catches. Right. Instead of having 1,100 yards, they're going to maybe have 900 yards.
And I think the fantasy part of it is very noteworthy
Mm-hmm.
because we all know this when we play fantasy football. You just want guys who are on your team to get the ball thrown to them
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of times. Your receivers or your running backs, you just want touches. The efficiency doesn't matter at all, right? If a guy has 40 carries for 100 yards and you get a bonus because the guy gets 100 yards, that probably wasn't the most efficient game by a
but
running
you got the
back,
100 yards.
but he got the 100 yards. So the touches are the key. There were some years, D-Mace,
Mm-hmm.
in the early part of your career, even
Mm-hmm.
when you were starting to become the starter and moving up the charts, is probably the most. I think by a certain year,
Mm-hmm.
you were the number one wide receiver, and you were very effective
Mm-hmm.
in that offense
Mm-hmm.
and efficient. But you were not a guy that everybody wanted on their fantasy team,
Exactly.
unless it was a deeper league, because you didn't have 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns.
Exactly.
So
that wasn't our offense.
So the fantasy thing is not important to the Titans, right? It's important to us as fantasy owners, but that's the context of those things. Calvin Ridley could have those numbers, but like you just talked about, D-Base, it's the context of what you're trying to do with a rookie quarterback. That's important.
It's all about efficiency, because when you look at it, as a quarterback continues to mature and develop, then, you want to still be efficient, but the efficiency may not be as high, say, year 3 as it was, earlier, because what you do is you're going to throw less. Typically, you're going to throw less because you want to bring the quarterback on slowly, but you're hoping to run plays that this quarterback, he knows like the back of his hand. That's what you want to do, and you can run them out of different formations. So with that being said, he may be a little bit more efficient in but there's not going to be 1,300 yards by the second guy, 1,500 yards by the first guy. We got a running back with 400 or 500 yards. And the tight ends know it's not going to be like that. It may one day get to that with Cam Ward.
That's what you hope.
But that's what you hope. But right now, I think they're going to try to bring this thing along slowly, unless, like Jaden Daniels and like CJ Stroud, he picks up on it very quickly and he can just jump on a bike and go.
615-737-1025. Calvin Ridley says Cam Ward has an effort personality, an effort mentality, I should say. And your thoughts on Calvin Ridley this coming season? 615-737-1025. By the way, some Predators adjacent news just broke. Dan Muse, former Predators assistant coach, new head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Elliot mentioned his name on the podcast the other day. I did not think that Dan Muse would ever be a head coach. I thought he was one of those career sidekick guys. Solid. You dealt with him when he was with the Predators. He was kind of the guy behind the scenes for a good long time. Not a great NHL player, a guy that's been a lot of different places on the college level, just a behind the scenes hockey guy. So good for Dan Muse.
He gets to coach Sidney Crosby.
How about that?
615.
Hey, Sidney, this is Coach Muse. I want you in my office at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Can you imagine, Dan Muse? I'm your new coach. I'm your worst nightmare.
615-737-1025. We will get back into Calvin Ridley and Cam Ward coming up next. But before we do, tune into 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Nashville Sounds take on Gwinnett at First Horizon Park. Pre-game begins at 6:20 and the first pitch is at 6:35. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow, scheduled to join us at noon. One texter, Kyle from White House, wants Derek to talk about his experience with Joe Flacco and how you two got along in 2008. And I was looking at your numbers year over year. 2008, Flacco's rookie season versus 2007, the year before Flacco arrived in Baltimore, based on your conversation about Calvin Ridley. So this is what's interesting. In terms of targets and receptions, you were down fairly significantly year over year. You went from 103 receptions to 80 receptions. You went from 164 targets to 121 targets, but you only went down 50 receiving yards and you were more efficient. You had a higher yards per reception. You went from 10.6 to 13.
Well, because we became, and this is what I talked about, when you get a rookie quarterback,
right?
The efficiency.
It's the growth curve.
Yeah,
of
exactly.
Steve McNair in there. Right?
Absolutely. So it's like, yeah, the numbers may be lower, but the targets may be lower, but the efficiency is higher.
And you had the same number of touchdowns.
Exactly. So and plus, I think that was Cam Cameron might have been there. And I love Cam Cameron as an OC, because I think he helped Joe. I think he may have been there, Joe's. Yeah, I think he was there.
Cam Cameron was the offensive coordinator in 2008.
And Cam did a excellent job, man, at like keeping everything simple for Joe, but making it efficient, because Joe had this big arm. But what Cam did was he didn't just let him throw it willy-nilly. You know, he took his spots where he would push the ball down the field with Joe. But he tried to keep everything more or less in the phone booth for him until he started to develop it all. Eventually, he developed into a Super Bowl winning quarterback, regardless of what you think about Joe in his career. He is a Super Bowl winning and MVP, quarterback of the Super Bowl. So,
he's not a mentor.
No, and he's not a mentor.
He's not a mentor.
What Cam Cameron did with him, I thought was great, because he brought him. We may have not liked it at the time, receivers, because you want the ball. You want the ball to be thrown to you. And you got to understand, at this time, it was myself, Manzada, I believe, Dante, was Washington with us? Gosh, we had like 2 UT players, I believe, Dante and what was the other guy's name?
In 2008, you led the team with 121 targets, followed by Mark Clayton with 82, Todd Heap with 64, Ray Rice, Willis McGahee, LaRon McClain, Demetrius Williams. Yeah. Those were some of the.
So the next year it was those guys. But it was, okay, we're not going to throw the ball down the field a lot. We're not going to put our quarterback in a position where we're not helping him. What we're doing is we're maturing and we're developing the quarterback. We can do that. Why? Because we feel our team as a whole is a good team. From top to bottom, we are a good team. So with that being said, we can bring the quarterback along slowly. We can, rely on our run game and our defense and really put together a passing game where it utilizes some of the quarterback's strength, but it also doesn't put him in a position where he's, being reckless with the football. So Mason, you may have, we may have thrown you the ball 100 and whatever times last year, but this year you're not going to get as many targets, but the efficiency, the yards per catch may be up, and they were. The yards per catch were up, but my yardage were down, and the targets were down. But it allowed Joe and the offense to grow in a way where if we did take a step back, it wasn't this 3 or 4 steps back. You see what I'm saying? It was just a slight step back, and then the next week we get going.
And this is something I would love to know, Willie. I'm looking at the breakdown of targets last season for Titans receivers and tight ends. So I'm eliminating Chigakonkwo. I'm looking at receivers only. Ridley had 120 targets. I'll throw Chicken there, why not? He had 70. Nick Westbrook-Akine had 60. So there was a difference of 60 targets between the top receiver and the second receiver. I wonder.
And you're throwing out D-Hop in there, because D-Hop is in there for a percentage of the game.
Yeah, for like what, 6 games it may have been? Yeah.
So
I think he played more than 6, right?
Was it? It was right. They traded right before the trade
Yeah.
deadline, and that was what in
I was-
6
October.
or 7. It
I'm
could be.
wondering if there is a larger discrepancy in the NFL of targets between a team's top 2 wide receivers.
Right, and it's. Let's see. Let me see if I can find Hopkins's.
Well, if you
thing
have
exactly, 'cause
two,
we can
if you have 2
work that
bona
in.
fide receivers, if you have a legitimate
He
one,
played 6. He played
and-
6 games, and
okay,
boy, I didn't realize that he only had 21 targets. So I thought he would have had a few more than that before they traded him, but that's not that significant.
It was
So
Ridley with 120, Okonkwo with 70, Nick Westbrook-Akine with 60, Boyd with 57, and then Hopkins with 21.
because they never had that bona fide number 2 guy. And when you don't have that bona fide number 2 guy, then, one, everything goes really to the number 1, but your passing game can't evolve because we don't have a second or third guy to go to. Typically what you want is, as the quarterback start to develop, your top receiver, let's just say a Jefferson, he's going to get 170 something targets. That's just, it is what it is. His efficiency may not be great, but he's going to get the yardage. But the next guy, you want to have at about 100 or a little bit over 100 targets.
So let's use the Vikings as an example. Justin Jefferson had 154 targets. Jordan Addison had 99. So
And he got
difference of
hurt.
55.
And how many games did he
played
play?
15
He
games.
played.
who would
He
have been
missed
their
2
number
games.
3? I'm trying to remember off the top. of my
Would have
head.
been the tight end.
Hawkinson was
Yeah, the
their
tight end.
Yeah,
No, I definitely knew about him.
Aaron Jones and TJ Hawkinson had 62 targets.
So Aaron
each.
Jones, a running back.
Yes.
So you can get a feel for the distribution.
Mhm.
And that was a really good team, obviously. I would say, again, going back to our context of from the fantasy perspective, there have been plenty of great fantasy players that might have won you a championship in your fantasy league, but they were not on good teams, right? So it goes down to how well are you distributing the ball? How is your role definition in your offense? How efficient is your offense? What percentage do you want to throw the ball? Right? D Mace, you could argue, and I do argue, that your numbers are not appreciated enough because you played in the context of teams that wanted to run the ball more than most teams. You never were on a run and shoot, which would be the extreme example, right? Warren Moon, you wanted Warren Moon and all 4 of the receivers in that 4 wide receiver set. I was a young up and coming fantasy owner at the time.
That's what you wanted.
I'm like, give me Haywood Jeffries, give me Drew Hill.
I'm taking them all.
I'll take them all.
Yeah.
Right? Because those guys were going to throw it a ton every week. And they were a pretty good team. But there were other teams too that you're like, look, this guy sucks in terms of winning
Fantasy,
football
yeah.
games. But they're going to get behind and he's going to throw for 300 yards because they have to throw it. They have no, and then on the other side, a guy like Troy Aikman, right, was not a guy that you wanted quarterbacking your fantasy team because his numbers as a passer, they didn't need to pass that
Yeah,
much.
they weren't going to be gaudy.
Let me ask you this, Derek, because I'll look it up. Which team, you mentioned the Vikings before, but when you think of a team with a balanced passing attack, which team comes to mind?
Cincinnati Bengals.
All right, so let's
They're
take
the best passing team in the league.
all
I
right, so
believe.
let's look at the Bengals. Let's look at their distribution of targets. Jamar Chase at 175,
Mhm.
T. Higgins at 109.
But the caveat is T. Higgins missed 5 games.
He only played 9 games.
We played 12.
He played 12, started 9. I'm
started 9,
sorry.
yeah.
He played 12, started 9. Then Mike Gesicki, the tight end, had 83. So 175, 109, and 83.
But then look at the third wide receiver. He had 61
yes, I don't even know.
targets.
Andre
Yeah.
Iosivas?
Vasilevsky.
What?
Vasilevsky.
That's how you pronounce it?
Yeah, we had him on Talking with TD.
Oh, man.
Oh, okay.
I would
Oh,
not have
wow.
guessed that.
Me either. I would have not guessed that the way it's spelled. But this is what you want, because if T. Higgins plays and starts 17 games, Jamar Chase he'll still be in that 170-ish. Then T. Higgins, you figure, will be 145, 150, and then so forth and so
Well,
on.
let's do it by per game. That was just the total.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase, 10.3 targets per game. T. Higgins, 9.1. When you do it
There,
per game.
that's the balance you want to have, because that shows me that you have 2 bona fide studs on the outside.
The Titans, Ridley, 7.1 targets per game. Chiga Okonkwo, 4.1. Tyler Boyd, 3.6. Nick Westbrook Akine, 3.5.
Yeah, it needs to be, in order for this passing game to continue to develop and to be one of the better, and I'm not saying even a top 5 or 7 passing game. I think there needs to be more distribution evenly outside of, say, Calvin Ridley. The distribution need to be spread more evenly. You need to find a number 2 guy, but then everybody else, man, because it makes the offense so much better when they can't, even though you're our number 1 guy, we can't really, double you or anything, maybe on third down, but we can't really put all our attention toward you all game because you got a number 2. That's why the Cincinnati's passing game is so good, because you can't just jump double team Chase all the time, because you got T. Higgins on the other side that is roasting you. That's why I believe they have the best passing game, or at least combo of receivers in the National Football League.
615-737-1025. We will take your thoughts on the Titans passing game and anything Titans. 615-737-1025. But coming up next, Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow will join us. We'll get into the Titans and much more with Hutton. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. 1025-1063, The Game. D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, joined as we are every Wednesday by Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Hutton, now that we are a few days removed from Vanderbilt's historic loss in the Nashville Regional. And I know it's easy to pinpoint the reasons why Vanderbilt lost this time around, namely the offense drying up. But it has been 4 consecutive years now since Vanderbilt made it to within 1 win of winning the national title that they have failed to advance past the regional round. Are you noticing any sort of common thread or theme as to why the Commodores haven't been able to get out of the first weekend of the NCAA baseball tournament over the past 4 years?
Well, the first weekend, it may have been your show I was listening to, guys. And pleasure to be with you. It's rare to see what Tennessee's doing on the flip side. What, 5 straight to the Super Regional?
Yes.
That doesn't happen. So with that in mind, I mean, it doesn't happen in that sport. And knowing how good Vandy was, and still is, I mean, they were the number 1 seed. The fact that they didn't do it, and we're seeing Tennessee at this rate, that tells me that Vanderbilt's more of the norm than the outlier here. And I also put it to look. I'm not going to sit here and be critical of Tim Corbin because I didn't watch much Vanderbilt baseball during the regular season. I hear the criticisms. Willie, I listened yesterday with the thought about the pitching. And different thing using a starter in relief, all that. I'll leave that up to the experts. But I mean, it's not like I forget what the conversation was a week ago, which was is Vandy back? I mean, that was the convo, and I just kind of smirk at that because it's like, well, I mean, Corbin is Tim Corbin, and Vanderbilt's been there. I expect them to be back. I don't view this as some major just cave. I look at it more as just this college baseball, and I think Tennessee in their consistency has been the outlier, not the other way around.
I believe I saw something and I wasn't able to find it before you finished speaking, but
okay,
it was a statistic about how Tennessee's 5-year streak of reaching super regionals, I think the next closest team is either 2 or 3.
It's like 3, I think. Yeah.
Right. So you're right that no team has had the sustained success that the Volunteers have had at the college baseball level over the past 5 years. I like you, Hutton. I am not an avid watcher of college baseball, but I know the good teams, and I know that
it's on, I'm watching it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm right.
Tennessee versus Arkansas. The 2 programs with probably the most top draft prospects in the country.
Probably among the top in terms of NIL resources, I would say. So you got some high-end guys on both teams.
Would you guys agree that Tennessee goes into this without the pressure that it's on Arkansas to finally come through?
Absolutely, I think.
Think about that.
And I'm wondering if the winner of this super regional is the favorite to win the national championship.
I mean, coming out of the SEC like that, I mean, they're going to be.
Although the SEC has not had the level of success that we thought it would, considering all of the bids it got.
But we're still discussing the favorite coming out of this matchup.
True.
You see what I'm saying? Like it's still going to be there, and the upsets are going to lead to more people picking the top, the upper crust going into Omaha than some of the maybe the newcomers or some programs we haven't seen in a while. I'm looking forward to this, especially with the backside of the conversation being about the backside of what we're seeing with college baseball, with all the trash talk, ejections, and everything else. I'm eager to see how things are handled here, just from the intrigue. Just quite frankly, the entertainment level of it will have people tuned in as well.
Now, Hut, continuing with the baseball theme. I mean, going into it, I think Vandy was able to, overcome, or as Willie, you called them, they were playing, what was the reference? Not Mr.
Cobra
Kai. Yes,
Yeah.
they were
Cobra
sort of
Kai.
they were sort of
Tennessee's
UT went
Cobra
at like the Cobra Kai, and Vandy was sort of the Mr. Miyagi in a sense.
A little more.
Yeah.
I don't know specifically that, but they definitely play differently.
Exactly. They
sure.
played differently from, but when you saw at the end of the season, the way Vandy was playing, how they just basically, it seemed like they were a different team once the SEC tournament rolled in. And then that parlayed them into having the number 1 seed, because everyone believes that the SEC, and quite frankly, you should believe that the SEC is the best conference when it comes to baseball. But do you think in a long run that may have, I'm not going to say hurt their chances of advancing, meaning Vandy, but sort of made it a little bit more difficult in a sense now that you look back on it?
Man, I don't think it's that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Corbin's always taken the approach that he took into the SEC tournament. And if there's a guy that would have his team ready to go going into the regional, it would be him. And the reason I don't think it's that is just how dull the bats were from top to bottom. It's not like it was just the middle of the lineup that just couldn't hit at some crucial moments. I mean, this was from the jump. So I think that's what's just so abrupt about it and jarring is, man, what stunned this team? It's like the stun gun.
Mm-hmm.
Going into a regional that you're hosting, I thought the crowd, the crowd for Tennessee, I thought played a factor in their final win. Got them going finally. I'm not so sure that the murmur or whatever you want to call it, the stunned crowd did maybe the opposite for Vandy. I think the home crowd could play a huge factor in the regionals.
Now,
there was nothing to get behind with
Mm-hmm.
that. It was just very bland, and that's what's so surprising about it is they could not find that one player, that one hit, that big moment that you thought they were going to finally get some things going. Instead, it was just kind of lifeless.
Well, it's almost like they were, in a sense, because they had did it, meaning Vandy, they had did it a game or two prior with the, coming back and winning a game. And you just felt that, man, the bats are not rolling. And all of a sudden in the 9th inning, they come alive, but not enough to win that baseball game. I just thought that Vandy didn't have, ultimately at the end, they didn't have enough bats. This tournament, to advance, and it showed, because they went against a pitcher that frankly wasn't that good coming into it, and they couldn't get a hit off them all but one.
I'm thinking that too. You got a guy with an 8.
He was giving up almost 9 runs. Yes.
Yeah, man. I'm thinking, man, this can get the bats rolling here, and they couldn't do it. I think the conversation about his Vandy back is relevant now.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of smirking at it last week, but I mean, it's a good conversation to have. I think, what we saw this year shows that Corbin's going to get into the transfer portal some, but man, the competition across the board right now in the conference is crazy. Kentucky, I know Kentucky lost, but they were up big or something in the final game that they played, or they were right in it, in the thick of it. I mean, they could have won that regional. And then some other upsets too, like Texas. But I mean, I'm looking at that going, this is the gauntlet, and we're still going to talk about Tennessee, Arkansas, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Now, we had a conversation earlier this week. I think it may have been Monday. Shoot, it's only Wednesday. It seems like it's Thursday or Friday.
I know it feels like
it feels later. Yeah. But we had a conversation about X factors outside of the quarterback and Jeffrey Simmons. Let's just say that. Who would be your X factor? And outside of, let's say, Calvin Ridley, because I know what I'm going to get with Calvin Ridley. But outside of those 3 guys, who would be your X factor for the Tennessee Titans?
I mean, just pick a receiver.
So you're going down the route that I went down.
I'm going receiver. Yeah, because I think the number 2 receiver is crucial for what we're going to see. Now, I could go offensive line. I could go, left tackle. But I look at the line as a unit more than one player. So if we're just going X factor one player, shoot, give me the second receiver, because this is a team that's going to have to score some points to be able to keep up. I don't see a defense that's vastly improved. I don't see a pass rush that's getting after any of these quarterbacks. Therefore, I'm looking at a team that needs to put up 24 to 27 points.
Mhm.
They couldn't score 21 last year.
That was Derek's answer, by the way,
Yeah.
the number
Okay.
2 receiver. My answer, and we'll get Willie's answer because Willie was out
Yeah, yeah.
yesterday. My answer was Lloyd Cushenberry in the X Factor non-quarterback / coach division. Willie, we didn't get your
That's a
answer
good one.
yesterday, so who would be your answer for that?
I think Cushenberry is a great answer. I think that a monster year from Jeffrey Simmons would do so many things. He hasn't had a monster year in at least 2 years, maybe more.
Contract year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like definitely since he signed the contract. So
Yeah.
I think the overall, forget about the whole leadership
Yes.
thing and everything that we've been talking about, but just him
Yep.
being out there every week, having some big games where you're like, man, they can't stop Jeffrey Simmons. He's disrupting everything and making everybody around him better. That would have a domino effect. So I would say him.
Okay. Mace, did you say I could not say Simmons?
Well, I wanted to take Simmons out, but Willie taking
that's a
him
great
really
answer.
took him.
Oh,
and
I
I
thought we were just
understand the
keeping the
answer. No,
quarterback out.
I understand the
Yeah.
answer, but like Jeff, I know what I'm gonna get out of him. Yes, he needs to play, and I think I
But
said
do
that
we, though?
yesterday.
So usually,
more.
Hutton, when I said this yesterday, when I think about X factors personally, I tend
Yes.
to think of secondary
Yeah.
/ role
Okay.
players
Yes.
who can step up, or players who are quote unquote unsung heroes versus a top
Well,
player.
So when we
performer.
look at Calvin Ridley and Jeffrey Simmons, it's
Okay.
like, okay,
That's
yeah,
just
we
my
know that.
opinion.
Then
Exactly.
I think the other guy that comes to mind for me, then I will play off of your Cushenberry, would be Moore, just because
yes,
Yeah.
it's Dan Moore, right?
yes,
Dan Moore is just because what they did to move
JC
Latham
from left
from one
to
side
right.
to the other. That's a big decision. That's not a small decision. That's a
No.
big decision. And to put him in there, he's got to prove that he is not the bumbling Dillard or Petit Frere, all of the guys that have been
Cycle through that.
targeted as the weekly. They can't get this guy anymore. He's got to be better than that. He doesn't have to be John Hanna
Mhm.
or Anthony Munoz, right? The greatest. He just has to be good. So I would say that's a big X factor for me.
Man,
That's a better
this is
qualifier to your question.
Yes.
It's a great question. I look at it like Simmons. Yeah, I agree. We kind of know what we're going to get, but we need more.
Yes.
We know what we know what we're going to get from Tajay Spears. We need more. We need to see more. Same goes for Tony Pollard if they're going to be the dynamic duo out of the backfield. I mean, again, aside from the quarterback or the best player on the team, which would be Jeffrey Simmons, Ridley comes to mind. But aside from him, I just pick a receiver and tell me he's the number 2 receiver and he's legit number 2, and you can count on him.
All right.
That's crucial.
Okay, Hut, I've got one for you because it's that time of the season. We played a glowing clip earlier in the show. Calvin Ridley, man, I really like Cam Ward. He's doing a lot of good things. And this season, you pick a NFL city, you're going to see quotes like that, right? Everybody, hope is high. There's nothing that you can really.
It's a winning season.
You never see anybody say, man, our guy just is not getting it done in these OTAs. We've got to move in a different direction. Now, you're not going to see that. Can you think of a moment where you maybe bought in to a Titan OTA person in the past and you're like, guys, I'm telling you, I'm believing it. This guy's going to really make a difference in the fall. And you were like, later, you were like, what was I thinking? Why did I buy into that?
I've got a good one recently.
Recently?
Does training camp count, or does it have to be OTA?
No, I think training camp's fine, but I think of off
Early
season
camp.
as a whole, but especially the early.
I've got
camp.
one that I
Okay.
bought hook, line, and sinker. Chigaconquo. Chigaconquo.
You bought into
Yeah.
the Chigaconquo.
Right. I
That's a good
thought
one.
I thought that in a limited role in his rookie season, he was incredibly efficient. And I thought with a bigger role, he's going to be big. I drafted him at the end of my fantasy football draft to stash him on the bench just in case, because all of the people I play with live, I do it with people that my dad worked with back in Virginia. So they don't know who Chigaconquo is. He's an easy pick at the bottom of the draft. And I never used Chigaconquo in fantasy football. So I think I bought hook, line, and sinker into the Chigaconquo hype in 2023.
Let's just go to any of the running backs from like 2004.
How about Bishop Sankey?
Bishop Sankey, Chris Henry.
Oh wow.
Chris Henry. Man.
David Fluellen.
Y'all going back.
Was he ever hyped up like he's going to be a sleeper guy that's going to play a
No.
lot? I'm just trying to think of guys.
No,
who
you're
thought,
right. But those running backs were the good. That's Bishop Sankey's a good one.
Bishop Sankey is a good one that they were very high on, and he did next to nothing. Remember Mike Williams, who had the big years at USC?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like there was a off season where we're like, man, Mike Williams, that is the guy. He has got the tools, all of that. And then
that was right after like the Joel Falani draft.
You're going
and Paul Williams.
Paul Williams is another wide receiver
Paul
that for
Williams is a good
years,
one.
like this guy's developing. He's going to make it. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Maybe that's an exercise we do.
But
this
guys
week.
guys can really look good in these practices and these workouts to where it really does. I mean, it's everybody's looking for those guys, so you're going to have extra optimism, but it's a cautionary tale.
It's hard to look bad.
Right.
Isn't it? Mace.
Yes.
Isn't it hard? I mean, it's hard to look bad this time of year, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you look bad this time of year, then I feel for you. Yeah.
It's usually because you can't get out there.
Yeah.
Right. That ends up being the story. So-and-so has got the asthma. That was like,
that's
he's
right.
not hurt or he's not showing up. Why is he not showing up?
That was Traylon Burks with
Right.
the asthma.
Those are the stories. It's not a guy that's out there every day. The guys that are out there every day usually are going to make some plays. We're like, oh, he's looking good.
Well, last year, wouldn't it be Tavondre Sweat? Just based on his sheer size.
Well, that was
That's all
the
we
story,
talked about.
and he wasn't out there, right? And people were really worried that he was going to be able to be in
the
shape
condition.
to play. And that turned out okay. I can give one from years ago that I was like, here's the next guy that everybody's excited about. Jeff Fisher's hyping him up. I'll believe it when I see it. And the guy turned out to be pretty good until he got hurt. It was Mark Mariani, right? He was like a 7th round pick. He made some noise in those workouts, and he at least became a really good returner until he had that really bad injury.
He figured it out.
He did.
He knew his role.
All right, let me give you one more, and
crushed
I'll bring it back to a current event here, Hut, before we let you go.
Yep.
We had a discussion the other day about Kyle Pitts, right? It's not really working for the Falcons. This guy has got incredible, off-the-chart physical tools. And the Falcons might be like, do we want to sign him to the next contract? What do we want to do with this guy? I thought of another guy that was hyped up a lot for the Titans and was okay for the Titans, flashed, but was a much better player after he left the Titans. Jared Cook, remember him?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He was much better when he
played
left.
forever, right? Never found his groove with the Titans, but the second place he went, the third, he ended up being a solid role player, not what you would hope you would get with Pitts.
He didn't want to block.
Right. But so
you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah.
But tell me what you think of Pitts. Like, do you think Pitts in a second, a fresh start would be worth diving in on and giving up some assets to get?
Yes. Yes. I mean, but I say that I don't know how Arthur Smith did not get more out of him. I'm especially coming off of the 2020 year where he had Jonnu Smith, the tight ends caught like 700 yards or something like that. I mean, they were utilized perfectly within an offense that had a 4,000-yard passer and a 2,000-yard rusher. And he goes to Atlanta and doesn't get that out of Kyle Pitts. That's an eyebrow raise for me. Of all coaches, the former tight ends coach can't do it. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the athleticism and what I've seen from Florida and everything. I would love to see him in an offense that is pass heavy, not run heavy. But right now, I mean, I think that's kind of the method to the madness right now, is that they have to run the football well. And I think Pitts would be a great friend to Cam Ward. I don't hate the idea at all, Willie.
Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton Withrow joining us on D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick. Yes, Hutton.
Let me quickly. Can you guys see my background, or is my camera off? No, it's on.
There we go.
I don't know if you can see. I was cleaning out my closet, and I found this old article in the Tennessean.
Oh, wow.
Do you see this? And it's got D. Mace. This is like the 15-year anniversary of the Tennessee Titans. And it's got D. Mace on here. And I wanted to read this because I don't know why they
go ahead and read it. Please read it.
Okay, right. It's got Yancey Thigpen on here. Okay.
I assume this was written by Jim Wyatt.
This was 2013.
Uh-huh.
So it could have been, or actually there were a bunch of voters and things in here. So like it could have been written by Willie. Look, it says Yancey Thigpen, nearing the end of his career, he played in 10 games and made 38 receptions, blah, blah, blah. Derek Mason, it says Derek Mason later became a great wideout. What in the hell?
Later.
That's all they said.
Later became, it's got you as kick returner.
Uh-huh.
But this is the 15-year team. Later became a great wideout. Are you kidding me?
I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hey,
No respect.
I mean, if we're listing top wide receivers for this franchise,
it's me and then everybody else. It's me and everybody else. Titans.
Yeah,
I'm
you,
just saying
it's you
Titans.
and AJ, and literally everybody else is Joe Filani and Paul Williams.
Exactly.
I don't think you can undersell in the context of it, at that time when they had Yancey Thigpen and Carl Pickens at one point.
Dice,
right?
yeah.
And because back then I would do a lot of spotting for the network broadcasts. You know, so if Don Criqui or Dick Enberg or Kevin Harlan was coming through there, I was just the background spotter, right? You just you're not on the air or anything. You're never on camera. You're just behind the scenes, but you're listening in on a broadcast. You can hear the production, and my job is to point out subs that go into the game, who made the tackle, who made a good block. You know, a spotter can really, as you know, Hutton, can make a big difference in a broadcast.
Oh, it's huge.
But you never know you never know the guy. So I hope I did a good job for those guys. But when they had Carl Pickens and Yancey Thigpen on the Titans, there was so much hype. If they could just get Yancey Thigpen going and Carl Pickens, oh my goodness, can you believe how good? And I'm watching the team every week. Like, these guys come in every 4 or 5 weeks, and I'm like, guys, but who am I? I can't tell Dan Deerdorf or Sam Weish or whoever was doing the color, hey guys, let me tell you what's going on. Like, who are you, you little punk? You know, what's your name? Have I ever heard of you? Why would I listen to
Willie
you?
who?
I remember telling Dan Deerdorf one time, I was like, hey, look, I'm just going to throw this out there. Pickens and Thigpen, they're not high on these guys. Everybody's all over them. They're not doing anything. You know, I don't know if I said, I was like, but watch Mason, watch Dyson. These are the guys that Steve McNair is going. And Dan Deerdorf like looked at me like I was some young idiot. Like, why would I listen to you? He's like, well, they've signed Carl Pickens for a 3-year deal. I was like, all right, now. So let's see how it goes.
It didn't go well.
But I think, that was such a league-wide story of name guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you already had Steve, you already had Eddie.
It never happened. Those guys never did anything.
Yeah, they never came together. It's like Britt Musburger came into the booth whenever he was doing the Raiders play-by-play, and he was, for whatever reason, he was huge on Tajay Sharp.
Oh, man. Really? Wow, goodness.
And I was telling him, I'm like,
wow.
I was like, Tajay Sharp is not going to get the ball more than maybe 4 times.
Wow, what was he
He
reading?
had the opportunity to catch the ball 4 times today. So I don't know if someone pranked him or like he thought it was Tajay Sharp that was going to be the top guy.
Of all people.
Yeah. Hey, Mace, by the way, Wyatt, Jimmy and Mike Keith both gave you a great endorsement here, and you were number 8 overall, by the way.
Oh, well,
in the top players of in the first 15 years.
Not high enough.
Yeah, still not high enough. I don't think.
It was
take it. You know,
the write up right here later became. I took that to mean as a slight to the Baltimore Raven wide receiver.
Well, I take it. As long as I'm on somebody's 15-year. Or was on someone's 15 years.
In 2013, it says now he's a radio host for 102.5 FM and a wide receivers coach at Innsworth High School.
Yeah, I was. See?
So, I mean, there you go, Mace.
Hey.
I wanted to show you this. I came across this.
Thank you.
I used to save these papers, and I missed the hardcover, like hard copy paper because of that. And I missed David Clymer.
Yes. Hutton, great stuff as always. We'll chat next week.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
615-737-1025. Willie wasn't here yesterday, so we need to introduce him to the hottest R&B group there ever was. Not Big Jeff and Enormous Sweat. We'll discuss that. Well, specifically one half of that duo. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
Devondre, I saw Sebastian was doing some things like yoga, it seemed, or hot yoga of some kind this offseason. Did you do anything kind of out of the ordinary or maybe outside the box?
I tried hot yoga. Whew. I tried hot yoga.
How did it go?
It was all right. Try Pilates too. I ain't going back to Pilates.
That was Devondre Sweat yesterday.
I
Not
could-
going back to Pilates.
Nah. Hey, Pilates is totally different from hot yoga, boy. Pilates, whew, even for I hate Pilates myself. It's just your body works different, man.
Speaking
So.
of enormous sweat, Devondre Sweat in hot yoga,
Whew,
that
whoo,
is an enormous amount of sweat.
man. Gosh, I wonder what people thought when he walked in. Damn.
That's a big guy.
Damn.
You could
enormous sweat.
if you took Devondre Sweat's shirt after hot yoga and you know wring it out, whatever you want to call it, you could end a drought somewhere. With
All that sweat, man, big
Oh,
fella like
man.
that. Good Lord. Man, I'd have just looked like, whew. Big fella, whew.
yes,
Hot yoga.
hot yoga and Devondre Sweat.
I don't know. Does that even sound like it's supposed to go together?
No,
Not
it does
really.
not. Willie, have you ever done hot yoga?
But the big fella went
Never.
in there.
I've done yoga. I've never done hot yoga.
I will never. I try not to do regular yoga.
Can
I always
does
just do hot
anybody know-
yoga.
Okay, so give me the premise why the hot yoga is the extra ingredient that is separating it.
I think
just
it's because
regular yoga.
I think it's because, well, at least to me, I'm not I'm not sitting here and saying I'm some yogi. That's what they call them, aren't they? Yogis?
I think you
I'm
can
not.
be,
Yeah, I'm not. A yogi. So
Not
I
to be
don't
confused
know.
with the bear.
Exactly.
Right.
So I don't
or,
know.
or the catcher. Yeah.
Yeah, yogi. Yeah, you're right. But I'm not. But I think it's because, at least for me, it allows my body to warm up quicker and allows me to stay in poses a lot longer, allows my muscles to stretch a lot better. So some of these poses you can get into a lot quicker. And because as you get older, man, if you're not doing it, if you want to start doing, which I would advise anybody, any and everybody, do yoga. If you are an able-bodied person, do yoga, do hot yoga. Because I think in the long run, it helps you out, your body anyway. So that's why I think that's sort of one of the premises behind it. I could be wrong. So that's why I tend to do hot yoga.
So, Willie, as I said earlier, Derek unintentionally nicknamed the Titans defensive line yesterday as the new R&B duo of Big Jeff and Enormous Sweat.
Your mom's favorite R&B group.
Yes. Enormous Sweat is Keith's younger.
Yeah, it's only
huskier brother.
two people.
Right.
It's only two people.
So the Keith Sweat, I think we got to get Keith Sweat in there somewhere.
Yes.
He's got to be connected in there somehow.
Keith Sweat is his older brother. There we go. A little Keith Sweat as we talk about Devondre. Second year expectations for Devondre Sweat. Last season, played roughly 2/3 of the defensive snaps, had 23 quarterback pressures, just 1 sack, but as the two of you have noted, interior defensive lineman, not necessarily known for sacks. And I was curious about this actually. So Pro Football Focus has put out a list of the top players, the top 32 players at every position. And on its list of the top interior defensive linemen, by the way, Devondre Sweat, number 26 out of 32 on that list. I looked at the top 5 on PFF's list and looked at how many sacks they had last season, just for context. Chris Jones had 5. Dexter Lawrence had 9. Cam Hayward had 8. Quinnen Williams had 6. And Jalen Carter had 4.5. So Devondre Sweat had 1. PFF said Sweat had an impactful rookie campaign and is poised to continue that good play in his second season. The 365-pounder earned a 75 PFF run defense grade, ranking 10th among interior defenders. His lowest categorical grade was 64.1 in pass rush. So what are baseline reasonable expectations, you think, for year 2 of Enormous Sweat?
I don't know how quick you could pull these numbers up, but if we consider, and I think we do, Chris Jones to be the preeminent interior linemen in the league, right? As far as accolades and winning team, all of that stuff, getting paid big and being worth the big investment. My theory sometimes, especially with interior guys, is depending on the scheme, but it's much more important. Like, does the team get the sacks? The guy on the inside may be doing the same thing every year, but some years you get more sacks than others. There's a little bit of, I don't want to say luck, but circumstance that goes into who gets the sack, as long as the team gets a certain amount of sacks. So what would Chris Jones's sacks be year by year? Because he would certainly be the top of the top.
I could take a look at that.
Because I think there's probably some interior guys that on a given year might have 8, 9, 10 sacks from the interior, and other times it might only be 3 or 4. But the guy is still a force. It just happens to be that maybe the outside edge rushers get the sacks.
Chris Jones, man, these are some big numbers. He had 5 sacks last season, 10.5 the year before, 15.5 the year before that.
Right. But his team got to the Super Bowl last year, and he only had 5 sacks.
Correct.
But he was still, did he miss a lot of games or something?
He played 15 games.
15 games. So if you just look at the sacks, you would say, well, that's a down year for Chris Jones. But I'm sure if you look at the grades and everything like that, he graded out fine. Like when somebody's scheming against the Chiefs, they're starting by saying, okay, let's start our offensive game plan. How are we going to block Chris Jones? That's where it always starts with them. Just like when Albert Haynesworth in his couple-year window as maybe the most dominant defensive player in the league, it's not like he had 15 or 20 sacks. He got some sacks, but he was the focal point and forcing the other team to double team him. What are we going to do? We can't contain this guy. And that was opening up a Kyle Vanden Bosch. It was opening up blitzers. And so the defense as a whole was very effective. And it started with Haynesworth, but Haynesworth didn't necessarily get the big sack numbers.
Well, this is what I would love to know. I would love to know if there is a...
He was 89 overall, his grade last season.
So that's a high end grade. That's really good.
I would love to know if there is a statistic for double teams faced. I don't know. I'm sure somebody has
got that.
But I would love to see that number because Jeffrey Simmons likes to mention that I don't have a lot of sacks because I get double teamed.
I think that's 100% true.
Right. And I open up space for other guys by being double teamed. But the Titans as a team had 32 sacks last season, which was tied for 29th in the NFL. And 9 of them just walked out the door with Harold Landry. So where are the sacks going to come from? And what is a reasonable total of sacks? Because look, at the end of the day, defensive linemen, a lot of them are judged by sacks. It may not be fair, but that's just the truth. So if T'Vondre Sweat can get from 1 sack to 4 sacks, so add 3. I mean,
I'm going to stay consistent because I don't want to be on the record here or something and have Jared come back. You told me he was going to have 8 sacks. You told me.
Yes, you do have to be careful about that.
I will stand by what I've said along about Sweat in particular. Now, Simmons is a little bit different because he, I think, started off on a higher plane. But now we're still trying to learn about what the ceiling is for Sweat. But specifically with sacks, I don't think he ever has to be a big sack guy to be a really good player. We mentioned Vince Wilfork and Haloti Ngata and some great guys who are all pros year after year, that when you look at their year-by-year sack total, and remember how much we slammed Jared on this on a show over at Bridgestone Arena one time, where we looked at the career sacks for Ngata and Vince Wilfork, and we said, that is an example of a great, effective football player that doesn't get sacks.
So here's something interesting.
Sweat might be that guy.
Here's something interesting. So, of course, Pro Football Focus does have a double team rate stat.
Of course they do.
And this came out 5 weeks of the 2024 NFL season with a minimum of 50 run defense snaps. T'Vondre Sweat, I just lost him. T'Vondre Sweat, it was roughly like 40%. It was 42.2% of his snaps through week 5 of the NFL season. 35 of 83, he was double teamed. 42.2%.
And where does Simmons rank?
That was through week 5?
That was through week 5 of the NFL season. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm going to butcher this person's name. Folo Runsu Fadukasi.
Close.
of Houston had a double team rate of 71.9% through 5 weeks of the season.
I would not have guessed.
What about
him.
Chris Jones? Is he on there?
Chris Jones, 34.3%.
I would have thought that number would be
Jeffrey
higher.
Simmons, 33.3% through the first 5 weeks of the season.
So Sweat got double team more than Jeffrey
Through the first third of the season.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
I would have never
And
thought that.
I don't have access to PFF. You do. Maybe we can look this up during the break. Maybe we can find the season total for
Okay.
double team rate. So
Sounds
maybe
good.
Jeffrey Simmons does have a point. 615-737-1025. Your second year expectations for Enormous Sweat. He's not Meatloaf anymore. I know I liked Meatloaf. He's now Enormous Sweat. Keith Sweat's younger, huskier brother who opens for him on tour.
Little big brother.
Yes. He's littler, younger, but much, much bigger. 615-73. Don't get it twisted. 615-737. See what I did there? 1025. 1025. You didn't think that I, of all people, would know a lot about Keith Sweat.
Yeah.
The PFL World Championship semifinals are Thursday, June 12th at Municipal Auditorium, and you can be there. Text in the keyword match, MATCH, to 615-737-1025 now to be entered to win a pair of VIP ringside tickets. Visit pflmma.com/schedule for more details. D Mace Vinganadonic 1025, 1063 the game.
Some good Key Sweat right here.
I prefer
Yeah.
the Sexual Healing remix personally, but this is
He normally
still a
sweats in the
fabulous song.
background.
Yes,
He's singing background.
So unfortunately, as we scoured PFF during the break, we weren't able to find the database with the double team rate for the season. But from what we saw through the first 5 weeks of the season, T'Vondre Sweat double teamed more in terms of percentage of snaps than Jeffrey Simmons. One texter says, my problem with the Titans and Jeffrey Simmons is they talk about him like he is Chris Jones. It seems like his best years come when they are good and he can fly under the radar, but the Titans need him to take over games for a poor defense, and I don't think he's done that.
See, there's a difference between, I don't think anyone's, at least I'm not talking about Jeffrey Simmons as if he's Chris Jones, because there's a difference between Chris Jones and every other defensive lineman in the National Football League. It's evident when you watch the game. He stands out. He just stands out. As soon as they come on the field and they line up, he stands out. Everybody seems to have an arrow on him because of what he can do. He is almost Reggie White-esque in a sense that you got to know where he is at across the line. You got to know where he's at, because if you don't, he's going to disrupt you. Even when you know where he's at, he's still going to be a disruptive force. So I'm not no way, no how trying to compare Jeffrey Simmons to Chris Jones. But what I will say is Jeffrey does have the ability to be more consistent than what he has been the last 2 seasons. And I know, not last season, before that, he was dealing with some injuries. I know that the ankle injury, I believe, I think it was 2 seasons ago. And he just hadn't gotten back up to the form that we saw that parlayed him into a big contract.
So I mentioned the list from Pro Football Focus of the top interior defenders. T'Vondre Sweat was number 26 on the list. Venture to guess where Jeffrey Simmons is on the list of the top 32 interior defensive linemen ahead of this season.
32?
Top 32.
He is not 32. He is above T'Vondre Sweat.
No. T'Vondre is what?
26.
But he's only a single, according to our colleague, Jared Stillman.
Yeah.
Not a double.
I
think we could argue he's even more than a double, but
I was going to say ground rule double, but I think that's too soon.
Or a top double where you're thinking of stretching it to a triple. Maybe you could get a triple, but you say, no, I'm just going to take a double.
I think he's the top 10.
He is top 10.
Okay.
He is number 9 on the list. Here are the interior defensive linemen in front of him, according to Pro Football Focus. Chris Jones, Dexter Lawrence, Cam Hayward, Quinnen Williams, Jalen Carter, Leonard Williams, Derek Brown, DeForest Buckner. That's the 8 ahead of Jeffrey Simmons on this list. And Christian Wilkins rounds out the top 10.
Yeah, and listen, we look at Jeffrey Simmons different because we see it every day. And we expect more. And the way Jeffrey sort of presents it, if you listen to him, but look at his play, they don't match. And I'm not saying that he's a bad player. Again, you want more out of that position from him because you've seen more. When you've seen more, then you shouldn't give me less. So I think that's what Jeffrey Simmons is running into. He's talking a little bit more, but we're seeing a little bit less productivity at that position because, again, we know what he's capable of doing, and we just need to do it. We need him to do it like Chris Jones do it each and every game. He doesn't need to be, I wish he was Chris Jones, but he needs to be consistent like Chris Jones each and every game. And he just hadn't been that way. At least this season, he wasn't.
I'm reminded of Leonard Williams going out to the joint practices last year with the Seahawks and seeing Leonard Williams. And I'm saying, oh my God, sometimes
he's huge.
6'5", 302 pounds. He stopped me in my tracks. When I saw Leonard Williams. And I'll be curious where Jeffrey Simmons ranks usually around the end of training camp. They, ESPN, I think it's Jeremy Fowler does the rankings. He does the polls with the executives and players and ranks the top players at every position. And I'm wondering where Jeffrey Simmons is usually high on that list. I'm looking for last year's rankings. I'm wondering where he will fall this year, just because the perception of Jeffrey Simmons for those of us inside
Mhm.
Nashville who watch him on a weekly basis versus the perception of Jeffrey Simmons by the league at large are quite different.
Yes. I think the league at large think highly of him, more highly of him. I think us here, at least let me speak for myself. I think highly of him, but I want to see more from him. Again, I think highly of him, but I want to see more from him.
All right. So I did find this list from Jeremy Fowler. This was July 9th of 2024. Executives, coaches, and scouts ranked the NFL's top 10 defensive tackles for 2024. Jeffrey Simmons was 4th on the list around this time last year, behind Chris Jones, Quinnen Williams, and Dexter Lawrence. And I actually like this description of Jeffrey Simmons in this piece by Jeremy Fowler. Quote, Simmons is the classic eye test player. His stats aren't always gaudy, but coaches and scouts know he wrecks game plans. When he's focused and sets out to make a lot of plays, he's pretty much unblockable. A head scout with an NFL team said, I think he'll have a big year, similar to Justin Madubuike in that same Baltimore scheme last year. That obviously did not happen. Added a personnel evaluator. His power is probably the best in the league. I don't think he's played his best recently, though. I think that's
pretty sums up right there. He hadn't played his best recently. And I was high on Jeffrey coming into last season. Why? And I said this over and over. I was high on him because I saw what he did previously, and I'm thinking you're bringing in Denard Wilson, who has this attack style defense. Those rushers are going to get up the middle. Adding Sweat, that's going to take up a couple of bodies. You ain't going to be able to always double team him, so he should dominate single block. When he's single on block, he should dominate. And it just didn't work out that way. He didn't. My expectations was this because of a new defense and what he's shown, but then what we actually got was a lot less. Now, what I will say is this. I can't wait to see him in year 2 in this defense. Because to me, this is where we're going to see like that Jeff that we have been wanting to see. I think this is the year. And if he can't do it this year, I don't think he's ever going to be able to do it. Why? Because you know this defense in and out. They know what they know what they can get out of you. You know what you can give. This should be, and then Tavondre Sweat is another year older in this league and knows this defense too. Now people have saw tape of Tavondre Sweat. Now they know he can be a big problem into this, and he's going to get better. So that should open up some things for you, Jeffrey. And this should be the year you knowing this defense a lot better. Having someone truly on the side of you now that can command a double team. This should be the season where you really start to set the tempo for or the tone for yourself moving forward. This can be a 2-3 year run for you that we have been wanting to see, and it starts this year. If he can't do it this year, if you keep getting this inconsistent play, don't plan on him being on his team the next following year. I'm just telling you that. Don't be surprised if he's not.
615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on Big Jeff and Enormous Sweat on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Coming up next tonight, finally, the Stanley Cup final begins. The Florida Panthers versus the Edmonton Oilers. And there is a narrative that's out there specifically about the Panthers that relates to us here in Nashville that I'm kind of sick and tired of hearing about, I should say. And we'll get to that next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service, and we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. Finally, the Stanley Cup Final starts tonight. The rematch, Florida versus Edmonton. Game starts at 7 o'clock, as I understand it. You can hear that game right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game, coverage beginning at 6:30. But if you want to watch it, 7 o'clock on TNT. So, with the Florida Panthers back in the Stanley Cup Final, there's this narrative that's out there. It's been out there for the past several years. We touched on it last week with Elliot Friedman. This idea of the Sun Belt teams and the fact that they don't have state income tax. By my rough count, since the Predators went to the Stanley Cup Final in 2017, 8 of the past 9 Stanley Cup Finals have involved at least one team from the quote-unquote Sun Belt. The only Stanley Cup Final that did not qualify was the 2019 Stanley Cup Final when the St. Louis Blues completed their miraculous run and beat the Boston Bruins. And my elementary school geography tells me that Missouri and Massachusetts are not in the Sun Belt.
Although we have determined that the Sun Belt is a bit of a loose term.
Yes.
Even though you did provide a geographical thing with a chart that had a color-coded area,
It's
which
easier
included,
to
to my
tell,
surprise,
right,
the western states. I thought the Sun Belt was only limited to more of the southeast.
Vegas is lumped into
Vegas has got in there.
Vegas is lumped into this category, but you have Nashville, Tampa Bay, Florida, Dallas, Vegas, and the fact that those states do not have state income tax. And I'm not going to deny that that is an advantage. I, however, believe that it's overblown in terms of how much of an advantage it actually is. And I like this answer. David's going to play it for us here in a minute. Yesterday was Stanley Cup Final Media Day, where all of the players and the coaches and the GMs from both teams, they talk. And Bill Zito, the GM of the Florida Panthers, was asked a question by my good friend, by the way, Steve Wino of the Associated Press, about the advantages that Florida has in terms of building its team. This is what Panthers GM Bill Zito said.
Well, you've built a championship team. Everyone's talking about sort of the state income tax thing, but what are the advantages of sort of the market you have? And as a general manager, when you're sort of building a roster and attracting players in free agency or trades, how do you sort of use those advantages to sort of build the roster you have?
I think the most important thing for us in attracting players is I think the players have understood now how much we've been empowered by ownership to try to do the right things. And it can't be overstated what the Viola family has done for us to allow us to implement, whether we need a new practice rink. Okay. And here you go. And it's beautiful. And to allow us the flexibility to try to do the things that we think are necessary to try to win and to try to have an excellent organization. And I think the players feed off that. And they know that if the chicken isn't right, that we're going to get new chicken. And it sort of transcends all that we do. It sounds silly, but it's true and it's real. The sun doesn't kill us. It's a nice environment to live in. It's a good place for families. It's a good place for singles. It's got a little something for everybody. And then I'll point to Paul and the coaching staff and that room. And players know, I think, I'm not going to go through each one, but so many of the players who have come to us have had career years, and it's a function of the coaches in the room. So players from the outside, I think the tax thing is marginal at best. And I think the real reasons are that trying to figure out a way to do our best to try to win.
It's not the taxes, it's the chicken. That's the takeaway.
Wow. So I wonder if we're talking about, more fried chicken,
baked
grilled chicken.
I think they're probably eating grilled chicken.
Yeah, grilled.
Probably better
or
for you,
baked.
yeah.
Some type of baked or grilled chicken. Yeah.
But what's funny is
at one point we're I guess to assume that for all those years when Florida stunk and was picking second, that the chicken was
Yeah,
the
it was
problem.
the reason.
The
Yeah.
They had
chicken was the
bad
problem.
chicken.
Yeah.
So, as Willie said, there was a time when the Florida Panthers missed the playoffs 16 out of 18 seasons.
That's a lot of chicken.
Between
Mhm.
2000,
It's a lot of bad chicken.
2000, 2001, and 2018-19. And we didn't hear about any of this then.
Right. In 2000, 2001, they barely, I mean, when they did make the playoffs, like they weren't getting in and sticking around very long.
Right. So I think it's a hot topic because of the success of the Southern hockey
Right.
markets.
And it's important to point out that Florida has always not had a
Right.
state income tax.
Mhm.
So all those years where they had the bad chicken and the bad teams, they had the quote unquote advantage of the no state tax.
Right.
But I think it's become a little bit, I think for players now, just because we talked about this with Nashville, you know, when they became a franchise, there were players that didn't want to come here. But I think
They were on the list.
Exactly.
You don't want to go there.
Exactly. So, but the more and more you started to get familiar with this team, and then the players that they did had, and you saw, okay,
Yeah,
good
they were able to
team.
start spending to the cap.
Exactly. And then now that is just one of the added things, you know, you can mark as a check on your side. They don't have a stadium contest. I don't think it, you know, guys don't think about it at all. I think it does factor when you're talking about, okay, are you going to give me, say both teams are even, you're going to give me 4.5 and they're going to give me 4.5. Okay, where's my money going longer? I'm going to your 4.5 because you have no state tax. That's what guys, I think, are doing now.
And that is an advantage,
Yeah.
I think.
The first 14 Stanley Cup champions of the salary cap era, so starting in 2005, 2006, the first 14 Stanley Cup champions hailed from states with income tax. That includes the Los Angeles Kings and Anaheim Ducks, who are meant to be at the biggest disadvantage given California's income tax rates.
Mhm.
So it's a hot topic right now because the Panthers are on an incredible run. Before the Panthers, the Lightning were on an incredible run. Vegas has already won a title. The Predators went to the Stanley Cup final. And what I found an article on The Athletic interesting. I think it was published last week after the Panthers advanced to the Stanley Cup final from James Myrtle in The Athletic. The NHL's
Toronto-based writer.
Yes, the NHL's Sunbelt problem, in quotes, has no easy solution, but does it need one? And here's where I would be worried about this if I were a Southern hockey fan or a Predators fan, because again, the Predators have this advantage, right? The teams in the South, the Panthers, the Lightning, the Hurricanes, the Stars, the Predators, the Golden Knights, they are not the major revenue drivers of the NHL. Those are the teams that you would think of as the main revenue drivers in the NHL, like the Toronto Maple Leafs or the New York Rangers, teams that don't have the state income tax advantage. And I guess what I would be concerned about is if the revenue driving teams see the advantage that the non-revenue driving teams have and say, hey, this is hurting our bottom line. This is hurting the league's bottom line. We want to do something about this. I would be concerned about those bigger teams trying to legislate the no state income tax advantage out of the next collective bargaining agreement.
I think that's why some of those teams fought against to have a salary cap to begin with. They weren't all that excited because they knew that they had the ability to house a much higher payroll than some of these Sunbelt teams that did not drive as much revenue. But that's what saved the league. That whole year where they had the nightmare of sitting out an entire season. Now, if you're a younger listener and you're here, like, wait a minute, they didn't play a whole season? Yes. They did not play
2004, 2005.
0 games. I'm not talking about the 94 baseball season which was a nightmare as well, where they didn't play the World Series. That was a travesty. But they played 100 and something games before they stopped. Hockey never got the season started. They were so at odds. And the owners were like, we have to have a salary cap or else we're not going to have any kind of competitive balance. And markets like a lot of the Sunbelt markets, Nashville included, cannot survive. So Nashville has to be thankful as a market that they have this. The revenue sharing has evolved as well. And I think that's where I think even the Torontos, the New Yorks, the ones that drive the most revenue, they're giving a lot of that. They're sharing a lot of that revenue. So they have given up some of their inherent advancements or advantages. And that's, I think, also where they're saying, hey, man, are we giving back a little too much here? Because look at what's happening. We're sharing revenue. These teams are getting some revenue sharing in some cases in the Sun Belt. And they've got this advantage of having no state income tax.
And the advantage that those teams have, like the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? They are the most valuable franchise in the NHL. I believe Forbes estimated their value at nearly $4 billion.
That's amazing.
The last
$4
time,
billion.
$4 billion. The last time they did that exercise, they have more money to spend. So
right, they're printing money.
Does the dollar go further in Nashville than it does in Toronto? Yes, absolutely. But Toronto is not hurting for cash. Toronto can pay big money to players that, frankly, Nashville can't.
Right, but there are more teams now that one way or another can pay to the cap ceiling if they want to. There was a time where Nashville, and I would think there was a handful of other teams in this category. Florida was probably one. I'd have to go back and check. But they did not, nor did they want to, or they would tell you that they didn't have the revenue to spend to the cap. So there's your advantage for Toronto. Like you said, Toronto, New York, they're never going to have any problem spending right to the cap, no matter what the cap ceiling is, right? Never. But now that everybody can spend to the cap, that's where the advantage of no state income tax gives you something tangible. Now, here's what I think is coming in the next one. The cap is going to go up so much that we might come back to a spot where some teams in smaller markets are going to have more trouble spending to the cap. So they're not going to have quite the advantage they've had. And I'm not sure where Nashville is going to fit in that. I think Nashville, in a perfect world, will continue to be able to spend to the cap when needed. There's obviously flexibility in not spending to the cap. You kind of want to be under a little bit so you can maneuver.
Is there because in the NFL, there's a percentage you have to spend to. You have to spend at least.
There is a salary. Floor. There is a salary cap floor,
and so they do have that in hockey. Yes. There is a floor.
There is a floor. Okay. So the other thing too is you look at the Florida Panthers, for example, right? They are the team that is dominating the NHL right now. Third consecutive Stanley Cup final appearance. They could win a second consecutive Stanley Cup if they defeat the Oilers again. And you look at the contract that Matthew Tkachuk signed after he basically forced his way out of Calgary, or the deal that Sam Reinhart signed last summer. They can take less because their money is going to go further living in Florida. But it's not like players give teams incredible discounts. Mm-mm. For example, I don't think Steven Stamkos gave the Nashville Predators a discount. An $8 million cap hit, I don't think that's a discount for Steven Stamkos. Steven Stamkos is not worth more than that right now. A lot of teams would probably tell you he's not worth that much right now. So he didn't give the Predators a discount signing for $8 million per season. But when you look, again, it's part of it. Matthew Tkachuk, he was playing in Calgary. He didn't want to sign there. He wanted to go to Florida. That's where he ultimately went. He signed right away. He has changed that DNA of that franchise. He has been a gigantic part of it. But the Panthers, if you want to learn about lessons that you can take away from the Florida Panthers, is that they have built their roster aggressively and intelligently. First of all, they were bad for a few years, so they could draft Alexander Barkov and they could draft Aaron Ekblad. But they've also done some incredibly savvy things. They found a player who was playing a role. He was playing a secondary role for the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2020. His name was, or is, because he's still with us, Carter Verhaeghe.
Unbelievable pickup.
Carter Verhaeghe was, a bottom six player for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They signed him to a cheap deal, and now look at Carter Verhaeghe. Clutch every single postseason. They also did take advantage, as Willie, as you know, they did take advantage of long-term injured reserve. Matthew Tkachuk on long-term injured reserve. They can acquire Seth Jones. They can acquire Brad Marchand. That's probably the advantage that may be legislated out of the CBA the next time around, the LTIR thing.
I think that's an important point. And that's where we go. Let's go back to Bill Zito's quote about the chicken and everything else. You notice he spent about 1% of the time talking about the advantage. Now, he said in that 1%, I think it's marginal, but he conceded that there's an advantage.
Yes.
But you notice he could have, the last thing he's going to do is say, oh, yeah, we've got an unfair advantage and we're going to take full advantage of that unfair advantage, right? Because I mean, you're not going to, you want to downplay it so it doesn't become a big story and gain more, because he wants to keep what he's got going. So here is what I think has become a very distinct double advantage, and that is the no state income tax plus the ability to work the LTIR. I think if you look at the last few championship teams of
Vegas.
Tampa and Vegas and Florida,
And
all three have used expertly not only this no state income tax, which gives you one advantage, but you then double it up by being able to use the LTIR. That is the word he used, Zito, was marginal, but in a game where everybody's got the same amount to spend, you win on the margins, right? You can create a bigger margin by those two advantages. And a lot of the teams that we're talking about only have one of those two advantages. Everybody could take advantage of LTIR if the circumstances present themselves.
Do you remember who the first victim of the LTIR?
The Predators.
The
were
Nashville
the
Predators.
Yes, they were.
In 2015 with Patrick Kane.
Yeah, and I was
the Chicago
stunned.
Blackhawks.
I didn't at that time. I didn't know that was the rule. So Patrick Kane, who was at the peak of his career,
Broken collarbone.
Yes, I'm glad you remembered it was a collarbone. I didn't remember. I knew he broke up. It was a long-term thing. So the story comes out, and I don't think the general fan, I know I wasn't, was aware that this rule was out there. So what happened was, this was the dynasty of the Blackhawks. This was they were eventually going to win their third title in 6 years?
Sounds right.
2010, 2013, 2015. Patrick Kane breaks his collarbone with maybe, I don't know, a month or so to go of the season. He is declared out for the season. The Predators get matched up with them in the first round.
And miraculously, here comes Patrick Kane.
Right. And they never said anything about it. And now this is very common, right? Everybody's like, well, they're going to probably bring him back for the first game. We didn't know that was a thing.
Nikita Kucherov missed an entire season for the Tampa Bay Lightning and arrived in time for game 1 of the playoffs.
Exactly.
Well, why don't
so the Blackhawks, who were right up against the cap, they were able to acquire, in Patrick Kane's absence, a couple of guys that they would not have had room to get.
Antoine Vermette?
Antoine Vermette was a number 2 center, not a great player, but on a team that every dollar counted. They were able to bring him in, maybe one or two other guys. Nobody huge, but Vermette was big.
Made a difference.
Right, but I don't think most of the teams were even aware you could do that. And then, oh my gosh, Patrick Kane, what an amazing healing job. He's not out for the season. He's back. Oh, not only is he back, he's back for game 1
of the playoffs, first round.
And that was a knockdown, drag-out series where the Predators lost Shea Weber in the first game, and then Mike Fisher, I think, somewhere maybe in the second game or third game, still took them to a double overtime game, a triple overtime game. It was a great series. One great chapter in the great rivalry. But that was a big, big move. So that was the first time that anybody really heard of LTIR.
So as you watch the Stanley Cup final, as you consume all of the preview content before tonight's game, I'm sure you're going to be hearing and reading a lot about the taxes. It's an advantage, but I agree with Bill Zito. It's marginal. There are other ways to take advantage of your situation. And the Predators, look, they've been able, when the Predators were at their best, they've been able to take advantage of that too. 615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on the Stanley Cup final, which starts tonight. Panthers at Oilers. You can hear that game right here on 102.5, 106.3. The game, I believe, our coverage starts at 6:30. But coming up next, we know that NIL is a big part of college sports. We know that NIL is bleeding into high school sports. But should NIL be allowed in middle school? I read a story that I found incredibly fascinating. We'll discuss that next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3. The game. D. Mace Vingan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. So we know about name, image, and likeness in college. We know about name, image, and likeness in high school. But then I was reading this story in the New York Times by Joe Drape. Can this 14-year-old football star become a high school millionaire? Major brands and local sponsors have offered lucrative deals to high school and even younger stars who promote their products. And the story is focused on a young man named Caden Coleman Bennett. He is 14 years old. He is a sought-after football player from the Washington, D.C. area. He already has some sponsorship deals with a local fashion brand and an athletic gear company. His mother was interviewed as part of the story. And when you hear this quote out of context of the story, some of you may go, God, that mom's greedy. But she said, Caden's mother said, quote, the goal is for him to reach $1 million his freshman year of high school. And his freshman year of high school. The goal is for him to reach $1 million his freshman year of high school. And look, I support name, image, and likeness, but middle school, it just.
But I thought this was a fascinating article from a lot of angles, because I think when you read the whole article, I think the family and the support system, there's a mentor, coach.
We'll get to that too.
That is a very important piece of this. And I think they have an idea. They have an idea that they know this is a special thing and they've got to be careful on how they do this. They're not flippant at all with, hey, yeah, this is great. We want to get as much money as we can, as long as we can get it, right? They're thinking about this in a structured way. They I think are looking out, at least to some degree, long term. When I hear though that the goal is $1 million, I get a little bit concerned, D. Mace, because I don't think the goal should be about money. The goal should be, hey, look, whatever comes our way, we're very fortunate to have that. But my goal as a parent would be, I want to make sure that above all else, he stays on the right path, school-wise and everything. But I think if you read in deep, that part of it is in there. But if the headline is the goal is $1 million by the 9th grade, I'm like, oh boy.
So the article notes, Derek, that at least 41 states and the District of Columbia have policies through their athletic associations allowing NIL agreements for high school students, and many allow deals for students in middle school, according to Open Doors, a platform for NIL deals. About 2 years ago, one sports marketing agency signed an NIL deal with a youth football player in Los Angeles who was only 9 years old. I can't imagine what I would do with $1 million as a 14-year-old. I probably would have gone to GameStop and buy every video game in the store. And I would have had so much money
that's
left
the thing
over.
about that when you're that age, you can't comprehend
that money.
It's just hard. You can't do it.
Well, it's a lot different now. For one, these kids are exposed to so many things, which isn't, it could be a good thing, but it could be a bad thing too. They are exposed to so much stuff at such an age that, when they get our age, 25, 35, 45, it's not a big deal then because they've already had it, or they've experienced or social media, however, you kind of go about it. But this one's hard for me because a kid should be a kid. 9, 10 years old, man, just play some video games. Give me a bike, give me my fellas. Yeah, I may have a little crush on a girl, but give me my fellas. Let's ride some bikes. Let's throw the ball around. Let's enjoy the sports that we're in. Let's just be a kid. So that's the part that I'm, sort of torn between, the capitalism part where, yes, I should be able to, benefit from, whatever, whether it be my athletic prowess or my, scholastic prowess. I should be able to, benefit from that because no one's making a big deal when a golf kid is prodigy and they're 9, 10, 11 years old. Tiger Woods' son, we all know that he the first time he could pick up anything, it probably was a golf club and you saw it, but he's under a different circumstance. So we've seen it before in other sports, maybe not to this magnitude, but now that it's entered into the world sort of football, it's a little bit different. But again, I'm torn because a kid should be a kid, but also, man, listen, it's a capitalistic world, and if you could benefit, then you should have that right.
And we have a couple of texters talking about that quote from his
Mhm.
mother. The goal is for him to reach $1 million his freshman year of high school. A couple of texters have talked about
People read the article first.
Yes.
You read the
Yeah.
whole
Right.
article
So
first
Willie,
before you do
Willie
that.
mentioned this. So someone working on behalf of this young man is his football coach in middle school. Again,
Yeah.
middle school. His football coach in middle school, Mike Sharif, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. And in this article, it says, Mr. Sharif is not a fan of the NIL system. He wonders how healthy could it be paying children? How damaging is it to the hierarchy of a locker room? But Mr. Sharif knew these deals were inevitable in youth sports and felt that if he ignored them, he would be shirking his duties as an educator. He had a half dozen players with deals this past season, he said, and expects that number to double next fall. Quote, college already has become pro football. High school is finding its market, and there were already some foxes trying to get in my hen house.
But
Well said.
but he once, and this is why people read the whole article. And I understand you're listening to the radio, probably in your car or something like that, so you can't get to
The headline
but
is,
when
can
you-
this 14-year-old football star become a high school millionaire? It was published in the New York Times.
Yeah, so when you get a moment where you can just sit down, just read the whole article, because I think you may think about it a little bit different than what you are now. But even the coach, once you read the article, you understand and you see that this is just not no flipping coach that, oh, I want to get into the game. No, the things that he's doing with this football team, it should be sort of duplicated and sort of put into your program. The things that he's doing, the NIL, you got to have over 3.5. He has all of these stipulations within it, and if you don't get any NIL money. That's just the way it is. So I think these are things that you need to, when you're reading the article, these are things that come up that you,
Right.
okay, he's
I'll give you
trying
another
to
example.
keep everything. He's trying to keep these kids level-headed, knowing that he can't stop it.
Yes, it's coming either way.
Yeah.
One thing that I like too, they're setting up some classes
Mhm.
where everybody who's going to get some NIL is going to get some
Their
education
parents.
how to handle the money, right?
Mhm.
How to do a checking account, how to set up a savings account. These are really great tools to learn at a young age. I could tell you I had absolutely no clue about savings account or anything. I
ain't saved the money in my
nothing.
parents' game.
So, but look, if you get all that money and you have no idea how to handle it, you will lose the money.
It mentions in the
You
article.
will blow the money. So this is a good training ground, potentially. It's fraught with peril. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with this, but at least they're trying.
As Willie said in the article, the coach has taught each player how to open a savings account and brought in a bank representative to talk to parents. The students must pass a financial competency test and take lessons in handling social media and the news media. Those who secure NIL deals must maintain a 3.5 grade point average.
That's great thinking.
Yeah.
Because you know who I thought about a lot? It's crazy, but remember back years ago, I'm sure it still happens.
Mhm.
It used to be a bigger deal because there were less TV shows and stuff, but all the childhood actors.
Yes.
Somebody on our text line
fell on really hard times.
Somebody on our text line, Chris
when
and
they got so
Dixon,
much,
said, how is NIL for child athletes different from a child actor? They are getting
Right.
paid for a skill.
And I think there's dozens that we can remember from our childhood.
Yeah.
Every generation has got the ones that they see. Some make it through just fine. Some, have a lot of hardship, but make it eventually. And some really fall on some hard times, right? We're talking about in jail. We're talking about
Drugs, everything.
We're talking about, unfortunately, overdosing or, not being with us anymore. And it's really sad because these are the people who are timeless, because if you flip on a TV station, their shows are still on today. You're like, man, it's too bad that these kids that had a lot at a young age didn't have the right support system. So I would say this kid is going to be, he's not going to be alone. There's going to be a lot of kids who who are very special and get a lot at a young age. Some are going to make it. Some we're going to have some really, really tough stories about.
Matthew in Nashville says, so he has rules that the coach, that is. So he has rules that college NAL desperately needs. Sounds like a smart educator.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, college, where you at? NCAA, come on. This guy can set up a system that at least gives you hope.
And I think some colleges are doing, like, implementing that. Hey, listen, you want to be treated like a professional, then we're going to treat you like a professional. And I sent you guys one of the clips where these guys, you miss class, you get docked. You do this, you get docked. It's just like a real job. You don't show up, you don't get paid. So I think there are more schools, because they understand that just giving these kids this money and not educating them on this money, or not showing them there's going to be repercussions if you don't do the things that we're asking you, is setting these kids up for failure. And listen, I would rather have this coach than a coach that just, okay, I introduce you to this kid, without any guidelines or any without a roadmap. Because what happens is they don't care about you. They just want to benefit from you right now. They don't care how you end up. So they're going to give you the money, and whatever you choose to do with it, or however you choose to act, it's your business as long as you perform. All right. Well, eventually he gets older and he grow out of that talent. Now he's lost all the money. You don't care anything about him. I think what this coach is doing, what he's trying to do, he's being proactive. He know he can't stop it. What he's trying to do is prepare not only these young boys,
because that's what they are.
He's preparing their exactly. He's preparing their parents. Hey, this
preparing the parents is a huge thing.
That's the biggest thing, honestly. Because if you prepare the parents and they're raising their kids the proper way, the kids will get it.
And I forget, the mom has a job that
she works in the education department.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good, helpful thing too, that she's aware of some of this stuff. She
is a counselor in the DC public school system.
Okay.
So she understands the psyche and everything of it. Yeah.
A lot of the big picture here. But I think your point is the best point. Let the kids be the kids.
Yeah.
I think if it costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars and you're not maximizing your quote goal of $1 million, I would pay that in a heartbeat as a parent to keep my kid grounded and focused on the right thing. Because in the big picture, because we can all remember kids in our neighborhood who were the best. Now, this kid might be LeBron, right? He might be Freddie Adu. Remember Freddie Adu at age 14? Everybody knows that name. He was 14. He turned pro as a soccer player. We had all these he's going to be the next great superstar. Anybody know where Freddie Adu is now? He's probably playing somewhere, but he is not LeBron. He is not Kobe Bryant. He is not Bryce Harper, some of these teenage prodigies. You're much more likely to be just a decent, solid athlete than you are the superstar that's going to keep making that kind of money. So we all remember the kid who was elite when he was 14. You're like, man, this guy's going places. And like, hey, where is so-and-so?
Yeah.
Well, he's at this small college. He's he's been injured. So many things can happen.
615-737-1025. NAL in middle school. Is that a bridge too far? 615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the show next. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Hey, are you looking for a better financial game plan right now? Are credit card bills and car payments and any type of bill with a high interest rate just bogging you down, eating you up every month? Well, let's talk Loan Pronto here. If you're a homeowner, they've got a great system that can improve your situation in a big, big way. They've got the Rapid Equity Loan. Loan Pronto Rapid Equity Loan Program. For example, take your home's equity and you can take a chunk out of it. Let's say it's $100,000. Take that money and you can get it quick. You can get it approved in under 24 hours and you'll be on your way with this great streamlined system that gets that money in your hands fast. And then boom, knock out the credit card, knock out the car payment, whatever those high interest bills are. And it's going to save you money month after month after month. So call Loan Pronto right now for a free instant home appraisal and see how much cash you can get today, and then start your strategy. Loan Pronto is A+ rated by the BBB. They have nearly 2,500 5-star Google reviews. 615-499-5780 is the number, or go to loanpronto.com. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781. On approved credit, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D-Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Stillman and Company coming up next. Jared in studio, a rare pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
To see Jared in
Wednesday,
studio.
in the flesh.
I almost forgot what he looked like from the waist down, because you only see him sitting at his studio at home, and
it's growing a little bit more hair.
It happens to the young dads.
Yeah,
I've been there. So
speaking of that, I'm thinking about going with the Tom Thibodeau
Don't even do it.
No.
You don't think so?
Pass.
No.
I think I'm
Pass.
capable.
Hard.
I think if I
you might
grew
be
it out a little
capable,
bit,
but you don't want to do it.
you don't think it's a look that's
Hey,
going to
Willie.
start a trend?
Yeah,
Hey,
the
Willie.
comb over's not the best.
Hey, Willie, do you want to have to get a new set of keys? Because you're going to come to open the door. Aaron going to be like,
Whoa,
not
hey.
until you cut that off.
Hey, I'm home. Hey, guys, I'm home. Can you open the door?
We don't know who you are. We don't know a guy with a comb over.
Poor Tom. Poor Tips.
Oh, man.
No, that's an unfortunate hairstyle.
Oh, okay. Getting back to the NIL.
Unfortunate. But he chooses to do it.
Yeah,
he can do the Charles Barkley or anybody just
he
shave
doesn't have a head for a ball. He doesn't have a skull for a ball head. Let's just say that. So he wants to keep it over.
So
but
this was a part of the story that we were referencing
Yes.
in the New York Times about this 14-year-old football player and NIL at that age, talking about being a kid. Caden is the young man's name. Caden is used to awkward approaches from adults wanting him to play for their teams. He has been recruited for every kind of team imaginable, travel, high school, all-star teams. When he was 9, one coach asked him for his Cash App handle. Quote, I had to tell him I didn't have a phone, Caden said.
yeah, I mean,
which is kind of a surprise because I do know some
but that's
kids
an
that age who
attestment.
do have a phone.
That's an
Yeah.
attestment to his mom. Like,
Yeah.
Listen, I understand what's coming. I can't stop that from coming, but I can deflect some of it, and I can, sort of set up parameters. I'm not going to give you a telephone because I'm not going to give you access or people easier access to you. Just imagine, and I was thinking about this before we went to break, and I wanted to save it to after. This is why I'm torn between this. Because I want a kid to be able to be a kid, just play. Just imagine. And I'm thinking about my son. And in no way was he this kid that's getting endorsed. No, not even close. But I'm just thinking, imagine it. Like, what if my kid was even half of that in that sporting realm? And he just wants to go out with his buddies, ride the bike, and play in the neighborhood. And I say, well, you can't do that, man, because you got this endorsement. We can't afford for you to get hurt or anything. How do you think, how does that make it look? Like, I can't go ride bikes with my friend. I can't go play pickup football with my buddies. Stuff like that starts to come into the framework now. Now you got to be listen, parents, I probably was overly cautious when it came to my kids at times. And I know all parents go through it. I wasn't a helicopter dad, but as far as like injuries and stuff, I always tried to I made sure. But just imagine, again, your kid having all this NIL stuff going on. And in these NIL things, it's like, okay, not only do you have to keep your grades up, which is you should, because I don't think, you should reward someone that's getting average to below average grade. You need to be getting outstanding grades if we're giving you that money. But just imagine, like, you can't do things with your friends, like that you just normally, like, we're in the house after, you know how it was after school, everybody hey, we're going to meet up here after school and we're going to play a little. You can't do that anymore.
Right.
In fear of potentially getting hurt.
Think
at
about
that age.
If you've watched, and I know a lot of you listeners will probably have watched some biography of some sort of Tiger Woods, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I think if you look at all of his issues, there's no doubt that he sacrificed a lot of childhood to be brilliant at what he did.
Exactly.
But those sacrifices come back later in his life and are issues that crop
he has
up
to deal with. Yeah.
and he's had a lot of hardship later in life because of what I think you could say, some of which trace back to sacrificing your childhood, right?
Not being able to do the things that the other children are doing. And I get it. If you see a talent in your kid, whether it be, you just find he or she is real good at mathematics or something like that. It's these child prodigies. So you're spending more time, taking them to places and events and competitions. So I get all of that. But then there's a point where, man, I can see that when they're in high school, as they start to get into their junior, senior year, a lot of that stuff, even 10th grade. But when you're a kid, man, I just couldn't imagine telling Derek, you can't go play, pick up hoops with your boy because I'm afraid you may twist an ankle and that may affect your NIL stuff. It's like, yeah, the kid may get used to it, but then, like Willie said, I think those things years later come back in some form or fashion that you have to deal with.
AB in Mount Juliet says, you are right. Let him be a kid. The problem is that they are setting this kid up to fail. He's a 5'8", 165-pound running back. What if in 2 years he's the exact same size? Would he still be a punishing running back in high school? The answer is no. How fast is he? Is he running a 4.7 40 in middle school? Can you guarantee me that he will be faster? The answer is no. So what if this kid doesn't turn out to be some great player? The rest of his life is seen as a disappointment.
Well, again,
it's a great point. I mean, we know that your whole
It
life
happens.
it
Yeah.
does happen for one reason or another. It could be one freak injury that leads to another or something like that, or you just don't grow. You don't. Everybody develops at different ages, right?
And, but
Different
again,
paces.
that's why I'm torn between this. It's like I want a kid to be a kid, but also if you can capitalize, from your athletic prowess, or if you can capitalize from your scholastic prowess, do it. But it may cost. You got to understand, it may cost you something that you're not going to realize until later on down the life. Down the road, you may not realize it, but it will cost you something. And again, I'm not saying whether the cost is going to be so detrimental that that it puts you in a place of depression. But there are going to be times where as you become an adult, you sit back as we're talking as buddies. Man, I remember when I was 8 years old, I used to do this. I went here, my buddies. We went to the creek. And then you don't have no stories like that. Why? Because you were so good at something, or your parents thought you were so good at something, and people wanted to pay you at such a young age. All those days and moments were skipped.
That'll do it for us today. Hey, it's like the tagline of Chuck E. Cheese, where a kid can be a kid.
Yes.
Just let kids be kids. That'll do it for us today. Stillman and Company coming up next.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, wonderful Wednesday. Peace.